The night over ancient Egypt is quiet now. The heat of the day has slowly lifted from the earth, though warmth still lingers in the mud brick walls and dusty stone paths far away. The gentle waters of the Nile River move in darkness, soft and steady, carrying reeds, drifting leaves, and the slow reflection of distant stars. A warm desert wind brushes across the land. It moves through date palms and over sleeping fields. It slips between small homes where families rest close together on woven mats. It carries the faint smell of clay, dry earth, river water, ash from old cooking fires, and bread baked many hours ago. Somewhere, a dog stirs. Somewhere else, a tired worker turns in sleep. And in one small home, before dawn has fully arrived, someone wakes. Not a king. Not a priest. Not a noble. Just an ordinary Egyptian. A worker. A father. A farmer. A man with sore shoulders and rough hands. His feet are thick with calluses from years of walking barefoot or in simple sandals over stone and packed earth. He opens his eyes to darkness. The house is silent except for breathing. His wife sleeps nearby. A child lies curled beside her. Another child, older now, has taken a place near the doorway where the night air is cooler. Cooler. The man does not move quickly. Life in ancient Egypt rarely begins with sudden motion. He sits slowly, rubbing sleep from tired eyes. His back aches. His knees feel stiff. Yesterday was long. The day before that was long too. Most days are. He reaches for a small oil lamp. The flame grows with a gentle flicker. Soft amber light touches the room. The house is simple. Mud brick walls. Reed mats. Clay jars for water and grain. A low stool. Woven baskets. A grinding stone worn smooth by years of use. Nothing here is luxurious. Everything here is used. Everything here matters. And now, before bread is made, before tools are lifted, before fields fill with workers, there is one quiet task that nearly everyone must face. A trip to the toilet. It is not a subject kings carved proudly into temple walls. No grand inscriptions celebrate it. No heroic songs were written about it. And yet it was part of every life. Every farmer. Every builder. Every scribe. Every servant. Even the pharaoh. Bodies, after all, remain humble. Ancient Egyptian toilets were not glamorous. They were practical. Quiet. Ordinary. Sometimes crude. Sometimes surprisingly thoughtful. The truth about them begins not in palaces, but in homes. In poorer households, there may be no built structure meant only for relieving oneself. Instead, people often use simple pottery vessels, sand-filled containers, secluded corners, or designated outdoor places away from living spaces. Privacy existed, but it looked different from modern privacy. A man might walk beyond the edge of clustered homes toward open ground. A woman might wait for quieter moments. Children learned routines early. Morning and evening often became natural times for these daily acts. The worker rises fully now. He steps onto the cool floor. His sandals scrape softly against packed earth. He picks up a clay jar. Not for drinking. For washing. Cleanliness matters here. Ancient Egyptians cared deeply about washing, grooming, oils, and bodily care. Dust and sweat were everywhere. Sand entered homes, hair, clothes, food, and skin. Washing was comfort. And toileting was tied closely to cleanliness. He steps outside. The eastern sky is only beginning to pale. Cool air touches his face. The village is still. A donkey shifts nearby. Reeds whisper. The world waits. He walks along a narrow path between homes. Mud walls stand close together, their surfaces cracked from sun and time. Small footprints from children remain pressed in dried earth. He reaches a quiet area behind the homes. Here the ground is sandy. There is privacy enough. Not perfect, but enough. He squats. And this, in its quiet simplicity, reflects one of humanity's oldest solutions. The squat. Natural. Stable. Efficient. Ancient toilets, when purpose-built, often supported this posture. Some toilets in wealthier Egyptian homes used limestone or wooden seats placed over containers filled with sand. These could be surprisingly clever. Imagine a box-like structure. Flat top. Rounded opening. Beneath it, a chamber filled with dry sand. The sand absorbed moisture and reduced smell. After use, waste could be removed and buried or discarded. Simple, but effective. In larger homes, servants often handled unpleasant cleaning tasks. This meant someone, often low-status laborers or household servants, had to empty containers, carry waste, and dispose of it safely away from living areas. It was dirty work. Hard work. Uncelebrated work. Yet deeply necessary. The worker finishes. He uses water to wash. This matters. Water is precious, but hygiene matters too. Hands are cleaned. Skin is rinsed. He stands. The sky brightens. Birdsong begins. Morning comes. Soon the village stirs. And elsewhere, in a wealthier district, another morning unfolds. A scribe wakes in a larger home. His hands are softer than the farmer's, though marked by ink and reed pens. He spends long hours bent over papyrus. His back aches in different ways. He too must begin the day. His home includes something rare. An indoor toilet space. Not luxurious by modern standards, but private. Separate. Purpose-built. A limestone seat stands over a container of sand. The stone feels cool in early morning air. Servants will clean it later. He sits in quiet. Perhaps he thinks about taxes. Grain records. Temple inventories. Letters to officials. Or perhaps he thinks of nothing at all. Sometimes even scribes simply feel sleepy. Outside, women begin grinding grain. Stone against stone. Rhythmic. Slow. Endless. Bread does not appear by magic. Flour must be made. Dough mixed. Ovens heated. Hands work. Always work. Nearby, a woman kneels beside a grinding stone. Her arms are strong from repetition. She pauses. Wipes sweat from her forehead. Then she too excuses herself. In many households, toilet use involved planning around labor. A mother with children could not always leave easily. An elderly grandparent moved more slowly. Pregnant women needed comfort. Sick people needed help. Illness changed everything. And illness was common. Stomach trouble in ancient Egypt was no small matter. Water contamination, spoiled food, parasites, and heat could lead to diarrhea, cramps, dehydration, and exhaustion. Medical papyri suggest Egyptians understood digestion closely. They observed bowel movement carefully. Too much. Too little. Too painful. Too frequent. These mattered. Because the toilet was not only about comfort. It was about survival. Imagine a worker in peak summer. Sun overhead. Stone burning underfoot. Sweat pouring all day. Little shade. Heavy labor hauling blocks or digging irrigation channels. His stomach turns. Something he ate has gone bad. Now each trip away from work weakens him. His legs shake. His mouth dries. Even basic bodily functions become exhausting. Ancient toilets, simple as they were, became central during sickness. The wealthy could rest indoors. The poor often suffered outdoors under flies and heat. And flies. They were everywhere. Buzzing around food. Around animals. Around waste. Managing waste was essential. Villages developed habits. Waste disposal areas were kept away from fresh water whenever possible. Sand helped. Dry climate helped. Heat dried surfaces quickly. But smell still existed. Always. Even palaces had to manage human waste. Even temples. Even elite estates. No wall painting of elegant banquets tells you who cleaned the toilet afterward. But someone always did. By mid-morning, Egypt is fully awake. Sunlight pours across fields. The Nile River glitters. Boats move slowly. Fishermen cast nets. Oxen pull plows through damp soil. Mud presses between toes. Farmers bend low. Their bodies shine with sweat. Hours pass. The farmer from earlier works steadily. Lift. Carry. Dig. Lift again. The body is a machine of routine. Until nature calls again. This is less convenient now. Work cannot stop easily. Supervisors expect labor. Water schedules matter. Flood cycles matter. Harvest timing matters. So many workers simply stepped away to nearby secluded ground. Quickly. Quietly. Then back to labor. No ceremony. Just necessity. Ancient toilets in public spaces were uncommon compared to some later civilizations. You did not expect a neatly organized public bathroom beside every workshop or market. You adapted. You learned where to go. You watched where others went. Routine created invisible maps. Everyone knew. No one needed signs. By afternoon, the heat grows heavy. Air barely moves. Stone walls radiate warmth. Goats seek shade. Children become quieter. Even conversation slows. In a workshop near a temple complex, potters shape clay. Hands press wet earth. Wheels turn. Kilns burn hot. Sweat runs down backs. One young apprentice shifts uncomfortably. He needs the toilet. But the master is busy. Orders must be finished. Jars for grain. Bowls for oil. Containers for beer. And among these pots, some are destined for a less celebrated purpose. Chamber pots. Toilet containers. Practical vessels. Unglamorous pottery still paid. People bought what daily life required. The apprentice waits. Too long. Anyone who has held discomfort knows how slowly time moves. Seconds stretch. Work feels endless. At last he slips away. Relief brings calm. It is such a simple thing. And yet relief changes the body completely. Breath slows. Muscles release. Pain fades. Ancient people felt this exactly as we do. Across thousands of years, this remains unchanged. As evening approaches, workers return home. Dust covers ankles. Sweat dries into salt. Shoulders droop. The village fills with cooking smells. Lentils. onions, bread, beer. Smoke rises. Children laugh softly. A mother washes a small child after an accident. Toilet training existed then too. Messy. Tiring. Daily. Little hands. Little feet. Small clay floors to clean. Parenthood changes little across time. Night returns. The worker sits outside his home. Dinner finished. Belly full enough. Not fully satisfied, perhaps, but fed. He watches stars appear. His body aches. Tomorrow will be the same. Wake. Wash. Work. Eat. Sleep. And somewhere between these rituals, the quiet routines of bodily care continue. Toilets. Waste. Cleaning. Relief. Small unnoticed acts holding civilization together. Even in death, Egyptians thought about bodily functions in strange ways. Mummification involved removing organs. Priests and embalmers understood the interior body with practical familiarity. They knew intestines, stomach, bladder. They handled what polite conversation avoided. Because life and death both required realism. Ancient Egyptian medicine even included laxatives and digestive remedies. Constipation was treated. Stomach pain studied. Bowel health observed. The body's daily rhythms mattered deeply. A blocked stomach could ruin days. A troubled gut could weaken labor. To survive Egypt's harsh environment, digestion mattered. And so, the boring truth about ancient Egyptian toilets is this: they were not grand inventions. They were not engineering wonders. They were humble solutions built around sand, stone, pottery, privacy, and routine. But perhaps that is exactly what makes them interesting. They reveal the ordinary. And ordinary life is where real history lives. Not only in pyramids. Not only in tombs. But in tired mornings. In sore knees. In washing hands before breakfast. In servants emptying sand-filled containers. In children learning daily habits. In workers stepping away from fields. History becomes softer here. More human. More familiar. The desert wind moves again. Night deepens. Oil lamps flicker low. Families settle into sleep. And somewhere, in darkness, another Egyptian quietly rises before dawn. Beginning the same small routine once more. The man rises quietly so he does not wake the others. His movements are slow, practiced, almost automatic. He has done this thousands of times. His body knows the routine even before his mind fully wakes. One hand presses gently against the mud brick wall for balance. The wall still holds warmth from yesterday's sun, though the night air has cooled. Outside, ancient Egypt rests in a thin layer of silence. The stars remain bright above the desert, scattered across the dark sky like pale grains of salt. The moon hangs low, soft, and distant. Along the banks of the Nile River, reeds sway with faint whispering sounds. The world feels suspended between night and morning. This quiet hour belongs to workers. To bakers. To fishermen. To servants. To those whose labor begins before sunrise. The man steps into the open air carrying a small clay vessel of water. His sandals press shallow shapes into dust. Around him, the village sleeps in uneven clusters of homes built close together, each wall shaped by hands that mix straw, mud, and river clay under a punishing sun. Even construction carried exhaustion. Mud bricks had to be shaped, dried, stacked, lifted, carried, aligned. Nothing in this world appeared without labor. Not walls. Not bread. Not boats. Not toilets. Behind the homes lies a familiar stretch of ground used by several families. No walls mark it. No carved sign announces its purpose. Yet everyone understands what this place is for. Places like this exist through shared habit. Through routine. Through silent agreement. He squats. The desert earth feels cool beneath his feet. His breathing slows. And again we return to something ancient and deeply human. Relief. The body releases what it no longer needs. It is quiet work. Private work. Necessary work. For most Egyptians, toilets were less about architecture and more about systems of habit. Where do you go? When do you go? How do you clean? Where does waste end up? These questions mattered every day. In larger settlements, waste removal became a collective challenge. Thousands of bodies produced waste daily. Humans. Animals. Birds. All of it accumulated. Without management, disease spread more easily. Ancient Egyptians did not possess modern sanitation systems, but they understood practical cleanliness. They swept floors. They washed bodies. They cleaned surfaces. They used natron, ash, sand, and water in daily routines. Dry sand was especially useful. Sand absorbed moisture. Sand reduced smell. Sand covered waste. In many simple toilet systems, sand became a silent helper. A humble technology. Easy to overlook. Yet important. As dawn slowly approaches, women begin waking inside nearby homes. One elderly woman sits up with effort. Age has changed her mornings. Her knees ache. Her back protests. Standing takes time now. She once moved quickly. Years ago she carried jars on her head and infants on her hip. She walked long roads under heavy sun. She ground grain before sunrise and cooked after sunset. Now her daughter helps her. Even toileting becomes different with age. Squatting is harder. Walking far is harder. Balance becomes uncertain. Ancient life was physically demanding, and old age brought daily challenges that few written records describe. But bodies always tell stories. Her daughter supports her arm. Together they move slowly. No rush. Just patience. Step. Pause. Step again. History often forgets the elderly. But they lived inside every village. They watched children grow. They remembered floods, droughts, harvests, deaths, births. And each day, they managed ordinary needs with dignity. As sunlight begins to soften the horizon, smoke rises from cooking fires. The village wakes fully. Bread dough is kneaded. Water is poured. Children stir. A young boy yawns and rubs his eyes. He is perhaps 6 years old. Old enough to follow instructions. Young enough to forget them. His mother sends him outside before breakfast. He runs. Too fast. Half awake. Still clumsy with sleep. Children learn toilet habits slowly, through repetition and correction. Not there. Farther away. Wash after. Simple instructions. Repeated daily. Ancient parenting required endless repetition, just as parenting always has. The boy returns. Hands wet. Hair messy. His mother checks quickly. Satisfied enough, she returns to baking. The smell of fresh bread fills the home. Warm. Comforting. heavy with grain and smoke. Near the river, fishermen begin their own routines. Their boats push away from shore with soft scraping sounds. Wood touches mud. Rope tightens. Nets are checked for tears. Fishing begins early to avoid harsh midday heat. A fisherman squats at the edge of reeds before boarding. Even here, routine continues. Water nearby offers washing. Convenience matters. This is one reason settlements formed around water sources. The Nile River gave life. It fed crops, filled jars, supported travel, provided fish, helped with washing. But it also required respect. Polluting water too close to settlements could bring sickness. Communities learned boundaries through experience. Some lessons were learned slowly, sometimes painfully. Illness taught hard truths. In a busy town farther north, morning crowds gather in narrow streets. Merchants prepare stalls. Donkeys carry goods. Potters arrange wares. Weavers hang cloth. Voices rise. Not loud yet. Just steady. The market grows. Crowded spaces created new sanitation challenges. More people meant less privacy. Less open land. More smells. More waste. In denser urban homes, chamber pots became more practical. A servant girl carries one now. She holds it carefully with both hands. Its weight tells the story. It must be emptied, cleaned, refilled with fresh sand. She walks beyond the busier streets toward disposal grounds used for refuse. This labor receives little thanks. She does not complain aloud. But her arms ache. The morning grows warmer. Flies gather. She keeps walking. There were entire layers of ancient society whose labor centered on cleaning what others preferred not to see. Sweepers. Washers. Servants. Waste carriers. Invisible workers made comfort possible. Their labor kept homes livable. Their work reduced disease. Their routines supported daily life. Yet history rarely names them. A palace servant, a temple cleaner, a household maid, most passed through life without inscription or monument. But their labor mattered. Perhaps more than many famous names. By late morning, heat spreads across stone. A scribe sits cross-legged in shade. Papyrus unrolled before him. Ink prepared. Brush ready. He records grain shipments. Numbers. Symbols. Measurements. His work appears clean. Civilized. Refined. But even scribes must interrupt work for bodily needs. He pauses. Places his reed pen down. Stands slowly. His legs feel stiff. Too much sitting brings its own discomfort. He walks to a private corner where a limestone toilet seat waits above a sand-filled basin. Such seats have been found in ancient Egyptian homes. Smooth stone. Rounded opening. Functional design. Simple elegance. He sits. Exhales. Relief arrives. Silence returns. Even educated men found peace in ordinary bodily comfort. The human body ignores status. Kings digest food. Priests sweat. Scribes relieve themselves. Servants wash afterward. The body keeps everyone honest. Outside, noon arrives. And noon in Egypt can feel endless. Light turns white and heavy. Shadows shrink. The air thickens with heat. Breathing feels slower. Workers seek shade when possible. Animals stand still. Even birds quiet down. This is when toilets become especially unpleasant. Heat amplifies smell. Waste dries faster but odors rise sharply. Flies multiply. Cleaning becomes urgent. In homes with indoor toilet spaces, ventilation mattered. Open windows. High wall gaps. Air movement. Anything that reduced trapped heat helped. Architectural design often served practical comfort. Mud brick walls helped insulate interiors. Thick walls slowed heat transfer. Shaded courtyards improved airflow. Even toilet placement could matter. Small design choices shaped daily comfort. In a noble household, a servant refreshes a toilet chamber. Old sand removed. Fresh dry sand poured. The sound is soft. Like grain spilling. He smooths the surface evenly. Ready again. Such quiet maintenance happened constantly. The smoother daily life appeared, the more invisible labor supported it. As afternoon stretches on, fatigue settles across bodies. A builder at a stone site wipes dust from his face. He has hauled limestone since sunrise. His hands are cracked. His shoulders burn. He drank too little water. Now cramps twist his stomach. He grimaces. Pain comes suddenly. Sharp. Urgent. He steps away. Breathing harder. There is no comfort here. No private chamber. Only rock, heat, and desperation. He finds shelter behind stacked stone. Squats. Waits. His stomach churns again. Heat sickness. Bad water. Spoiled food. Too much beer. Too little rest. Ancient stomach troubles came from many causes. Medical texts describe remedies made from herbs, oils, seeds, honey, and minerals. Some likely soothed. Some probably did little. Some may have made things worse. Still, treatment mattered. People tried. Healing always involved hope. The builder finishes. Weak now. He washes with precious water. Every drop matters. He returns to work. Slower. More tired. No one asks many questions. Workers understand. Everyone has suffered this before. Evening finally arrives. Light softens. Heat loosens its grip. The first breeze feels almost sacred. Homes fill again. Families gather. Cooking resumes. Stories are exchanged. Children talk over one another. An old grandmother smiles faintly. A baby cries. Someone laughs softly. Someone coughs. Someone excuses themselves and steps outside. Life continues in rhythms. Eating. Talking. Washing. Relieving. Sleeping. Repeating. And as darkness returns once more, the village settles. Oil lamps flicker. Smoke fades. The sky deepens. The farmer lies down beside his family. His body feels heavy. Exhaustion spreads through limbs. His breathing slows. But before sleep fully takes him, he hears something outside. Soft footsteps. A neighbor. Another quiet trip into darkness. Another ordinary human ritual. No grand history book records it. No temple artist paints it. No royal inscription praises it. And yet ancient civilization depended on millions of these small unseen routines. Clean hands before bread. Fresh sand in toilet basins. Waste carried away from homes. Children taught where to go. Elders helped with dignity. Servants cleaning before sunrise. Ordinary acts. Repeated endlessly. Civilization is often imagined through monuments, through pyramids, through temples, through gold. But most civilization lives elsewhere. In maintenance, in routine, in cleaning, in care, in the quiet labor that prevents disorder. Ancient Egyptian toilets tell us something deeply gentle about the past. People were not only building monuments. They were managing mournings. They were caring for sick relatives. They were helping children. They were cleaning chambers. They were washing tired hands under fading light. The night wind returns. It moves across fields, across rooftops, across the slow dark water of the Nile River. And once again, somewhere in ancient Egypt, long before sunrise, someone begins to wake. Before the sun returns, the world holds its breath. Ancient Egypt rests beneath a deep blue darkness, where the last hours of night feel softer than the first. The air is cooler now. The heat stored in stone, brick, and packed earth has finally begun to fade. Roofs release warmth into the open sky. Sand grows almost cold beneath bare feet. In this quiet hour, even sound feels different. A distant bird calls once. A donkey shifts in sleep. Somewhere, reeds along the banks of the Nile River rustle with the movement of small animals searching for food before dawn. Inside a modest home near the river, a woman opens her eyes. She does not rise immediately. For a few moments, she lies still, listening. Her husband breathes slowly beside her. Her youngest child has rolled close during the night, one small hand resting across her arm. In the corner, clay jars stand in shadow. The grinding stone sits where it always sits. A basket of onions waits for morning. She knows the day ahead. She knows every task before it begins. Water, bread, cleaning, children, cooking, washing, repairing clothes, perhaps carrying jars from the river, perhaps helping in the fields, perhaps caring for someone ill. There is always something waiting. Always work. She moves carefully so as not to wake the child. Her knees crack softly as she sits up. Years of labor leave their mark in quiet ways. Not dramatic. Not sudden. Just slow accumulation. A stiffness in the hips. A soreness in the wrists. A heaviness in the lower back. The body remembers every burden it has carried. Before beginning the day, she steps toward a small private corner of the house screened by hanging woven reed mats. Not every household had such separation. This family is fortunate enough to create a little privacy indoors. The space is simple. A wooden seat rests above a clay vessel partly filled with sand and ash. Nothing decorative. Nothing grand. Just practical design shaped by necessity. She sits. The wood feels cool. The house remains still. This quiet privacy matters. Especially for women. Privacy could be difficult in crowded homes where multiple generations lived close together. Small moments alone were rare. The toilet space, simple as it was, sometimes offered one of the few private pauses in a long day. A moment without demands. Without voices. Without hands pulling at clothing. Just silence. Sometimes silence itself feels like comfort. When she finishes, she pours a little water for washing. Not too much. Water must last. Every jar carried from the river represents effort. Heavy effort. A full clay jar can weigh heavily against the arms, shoulders, and spine. Carrying water was daily labor repeated across years. People became strong because survival required strength. By first light, the village begins its familiar waking. The baker is among the earliest. He has been awake long before sunrise. His oven must be ready. Flour prepared. Dough shaped. Fire managed. Bread feeds everyone. Without bread, hunger sharpens quickly. The baker wipes flour from his hands and pauses. Even he must stop. Even in urgent labor, the body makes demands. He steps behind the bakery where warmth from yesterday's oven still lingers in the walls. His toilet is little more than a sheltered area with a stone slab above a waste pit covered with dry sand. Practical. Durable. Easy to clean. This kind of setup worked especially well in places with regular use by many people. Sand reduced moisture. Ash helped absorb smell. Regular emptying mattered. Maintenance mattered more than design. The baker exhales slowly. Soon customers will arrive. Workers heading to fields. Children sent by parents. Servants buying for households. Priests collecting offerings. Morning hunger moves entire communities. By sunrise, golden light spreads across the land. The Nile River glows with soft reflections. Boats move. Voices rise. Labor begins. And with labor comes another truth about ancient toilets. Timing mattered. Very much. People often planned bathroom needs around work rhythms. A farmer walking far into fields preferred to relieve himself before leaving home. A boatman expected fewer convenient opportunities once on water. A merchant working crowded markets needed timing and patience. Daily schedules shaped bodily routines. The body learns patterns. Wake. Relieve. Eat. Work. Rest. Eat again. Sleep. Repeat. Over years, routine becomes almost invisible. The body adjusts to expectation. But not every body follows schedules. There are interruptions. Unexpected needs. Urgent moments. Embarrassing moments. Uncomfortable moments. A young apprentice working in a weaving shop learns this the hard way. He is perhaps 12. Still growing. Still learning discipline. His master expects focus. Thread must remain even. Hands steady. Eyes alert. Mistakes waste material. Material costs money. The boy shifts uncomfortably. He tries to ignore it. He cannot. Minutes pass. Too slowly. His stomach tightens. He presses a hand against his abdomen. Not good. Not good at all. Perhaps last night's food sat badly. Perhaps water was not clean. Perhaps heat has upset his digestion. Whatever the reason, urgency builds. Sweat forms at his brow. Not from heat alone. His master notices. Says nothing at first. Then gives a brief nod. Permission. The boy almost runs. Through a narrow alley. Past stacked baskets. Past tethered goats. Toward a refuse ground beyond clustered homes. Relief arrives just in time. He breathes hard afterward. Exhausted. Shaky. Embarrassed. But better. Ancient life offered little comfort for sudden illness. If diarrhea struck, work suffered. Strength vanished quickly. Dehydration came fast in Egypt's heat. For children and elders, this could be dangerous. Very dangerous. Ancient healers understood this indirectly. They may not have known microbes, but they knew symptoms. They knew weakness. They knew thirst. They knew exhaustion. They watched bodies carefully. Healing often began with observation. What did the stool look like? How often? How painful? Was blood present? Was fever rising? These were practical questions. Because toilets often revealed health. Even now, much of health hides in ordinary bodily patterns. In ancient Egypt, this mattered deeply. At midday, heat returns with force. Light turns fierce. Walls glow pale under sun. Shade becomes precious. In wealthier homes, servants work continuously to maintain cleanliness. One servant enters a private toilet chamber carrying fresh sand, linen cloth, and scented oil. Scent mattered. Not only for luxury. For comfort. Pleasant smells helped mask unpleasant ones. Egyptians loved fragrance. Perfumed oils. Resins. Incense. Lotus. Myrrh. Frankincense. Sweet scent brought calm. Even toilet areas could benefit from fragrance in elite households. The servant kneels. Removes the used basin. Careful. Steady hands. No spilling. This task requires balance and attention. He empties waste into designated disposal areas. Returns. Cleans surfaces. Fresh sand. Fresh cloth. A quiet reset. Soon no visible trace remains. Comfort restored. Invisible labor again. This pattern appears everywhere in history. Comfort for one person often depends on unseen effort from another. The noble family may never think much about the task. But the servant feels every weight. Every smell. Every trip. By afternoon, the sun presses heavily over stone-cutting grounds near a construction site. Men strain under load. Ropes pull tight. Stone drags slowly. Dust rises. A foreman calls measured instructions. Nothing fast. Everything heavy. Among the workers is a man with an injured leg. He limps slightly. Old injury. Never fully healed. For him, toileting presents daily difficulty. Walking away from work takes longer. Squatting hurts. Standing again hurts more. Pain transforms ordinary tasks into challenges. History rarely records disability among ordinary workers. But injuries were everywhere. Bad falls. Crushed fingers. Twisted knees. Damaged backs. Broken bones healed poorly. Life continued anyway. The injured worker reaches a shaded edge of stone blocks. He braces with one hand. Lowers himself carefully. Slowly. Every movement controlled. Pain shoots through his leg. He pauses. Breathes. Continues. Finally seated in a squat. Relief comes mixed with discomfort. When finished, standing becomes hardest. He pushes upward. Shakes. Almost falls. Then steadies. No applause. No witness. Just one man managing one difficult moment. Small victories often go unseen. As the day softens toward evening, household rhythms shift again. Meals are prepared. Floors swept. Children washed. Animals fed. A mother kneels beside a toddler. The child resists. Fusses. Cries. Refuses cooperation. Toilet training is not elegant in any era. The mother sighs. Patient but tired. She cleans the mess. Washes the child. Washes the floor. Again. And again. Learning takes time. Children do not master routines instantly. They forget. They resist. They play. They get distracted. Ancient parents knew this well. Patience was daily labor too. Darkness returns gradually. The sky shifts from gold to deep violet. The first stars appear. Air cools. At last. People breathe easier. Night meals are eaten slowly. Fatigue softens conversation. Bodies relax. The day loosens its grip. An old man sits outside his home watching the stars. He remembers being young. Strong. Fast. Able to work all day without pause. Now age has slowed everything. Especially the body. He no longer sleeps deeply. He wakes often. Sometimes to drink. Sometimes to stretch aching joints. Sometimes because age has changed another simple routine. He urinates more often now. This too is part of aging. Quietly frustrating. Quietly exhausting. He stands with effort. Takes a clay lamp. Walks into darkness. Each step deliberate. The lamp flame trembles in warm wind. He reaches the familiar place. Relieves himself. Stands listening. The night is beautiful. So still. So vast. Above him, stars shine over fields, river, temples, villages, and silent tombs. Empires rise. Kings rule. Monuments endure. But beneath all grandeur, human bodies remain ordinary. They hunger. They tire. They ache. They sweat. They heal. They fail. They need rest. They need relief. Ancient Egyptian toilets may seem like a small subject. Almost too small for history. But perhaps small things tell the deepest truths. Because daily life lives inside small things. Not ceremonies. Not victories. Not royal announcements. Daily life lives in routine. In maintenance. In repeated care. In the ordinary work of keeping bodies clean, healthy, and comfortable enough to face another day. The old man returns home. He lies down slowly. His bones settle onto woven bedding. Outside, the warm desert wind moves once more across sleeping earth. It passes over mud brick homes. Over cooling workshops. Over silent markets. Over temple walls. Over the dark waters of the Nile River. And somewhere, before morning comes, another lamp will flicker awake in the darkness. The hours just before dawn carry a special kind of silence. It is not complete silence. Ancient Egypt is never entirely still. There is always something moving somewhere. A soft scrape of reed against reed near the riverbank. The quiet rustle of straw on a rooftop sleeping mat. A goat shifting its weight. Water touching mud in small, gentle waves along the edge of the Nile River. But compared to the brightness and labor of day, these hours feel almost sacred. Cool air settles low over the earth. For a little while, bodies rest. Muscles loosen. Hands unclench. Backs that bent over fields and ovens and grinding stones finally release their tension. Sleep, in ancient Egypt, is not luxury. It is recovery. It is survival. And still, even during these precious hours of rest, not everyone sleeps peacefully. In one modest home near a farming village, a young mother wakes with sudden discomfort. Her stomach feels tight. Heavy. Uneasy. She places a hand over her abdomen and waits. Sometimes discomfort passes. Sometimes it grows. Tonight, it grows. She exhales slowly, trying not to disturb the infant sleeping beside her. Her husband shifts but remains asleep. The baby makes a tiny sound, then settles again. She waits another moment. No. She cannot ignore it. She carefully rises. The floor feels cool beneath her feet. Her hair falls loosely over tired shoulders. She is exhausted. The baby fed 3 times during the night. Her body has barely rested. Now her stomach twists again. She moves toward the doorway and steps outside into the dim blue darkness. Pregnancy and childbirth change toilet routines in ways history rarely describes. After childbirth, the body recovers slowly. Strength returns gradually. Digestion changes. Pain lingers. Some women experienced long periods of discomfort, weakness, or difficulty squatting. And yet daily work often returned quickly. Rest was limited. Responsibilities remained. She reaches the private space behind the house and lowers herself carefully. Every movement is measured. She braces one hand against a wall. Breathes. Waits. At last, relief comes. The tension in her body softens. She remains there a little longer, enjoying the simple quiet. No crying child. No grinding grain. No boiling water. Just darkness. Cool air. Stillness. Sometimes the smallest moments feel like the deepest rest. She washes with a little water and returns indoors. Soon morning will begin again. Soon everyone will need something. For now, there is only sleep. Elsewhere, along a busier settlement road, a caravan has stopped for the night. Merchants traveling between towns sleep near their animals. Donkeys rest with lowered heads. Bundles of linen, grain, pottery, and oil sit tied beneath rough coverings. Travel brings different challenges for sanitation. There are no familiar private corners. No household routines. No prepared toilet spaces. Only open land and careful distance from camp. One merchant wakes. His bladder insists. Age has made waiting difficult. He grunts softly as he rises. His knees ache from sleeping on firm ground. Travel sounds exciting when spoken aloud. In reality, ancient travel often meant dust, heat, sore legs, insects, poor sleep, and constant discomfort. Even basic bodily needs became logistical problems. Where can one go safely? Is the ground stable? Is privacy possible? Are snakes nearby? Are insects active? These were practical concerns. He walks a short distance from camp carrying a small oil lamp. The desert night stretches wide around him. Sand shifts beneath his sandals. He relieves himself. Warm breath clouds faintly in cool air. The stars above seem endless. When finished, he pauses. Listens. Nothing but wind. For a moment, even discomfort feels peaceful. Then he returns to camp. Sleep comes again. Slowly. By first light, ancient Egypt begins its familiar transformation. Dark blue becomes gray. Gray becomes gold. Birdsong grows. Smoke rises. Voices return. Labor begins. Near the river, a public dock fills with workers unloading baskets of fish. The smell arrives before the boats fully dock. Fresh fish. River mud. Wet rope. Wood. Sweat. Morning labor near water is loud compared to village dawn. Men call to one another. Ropes strain. Baskets scrape. Water slaps against boat hulls. A fish seller pauses mid-task. He presses his lips together. Uncomfortable. Urgent. He knows the feeling. Too much beer last night. Too much salted fish. Not enough water. His stomach complains. He hands off his basket and moves quickly toward a quieter stretch behind stacked cargo jars. The ground here is damp near the shore. Not ideal. He chooses higher, drier ground. Squats. Waits. Morning urgency has a familiar sharpness. When relief comes, his shoulders relax almost instantly. His body feels lighter. More capable. Better prepared for labor. It is remarkable how much comfort can depend on such ordinary moments. A healthy body often feels invisible. Discomfort makes everything visible. Every movement. Every breath. Every task. Ancient Egyptians understood bodily balance through observation. A good day often began with the body feeling clear and settled. Digestion mattered. Regularity mattered. Relief mattered. Health often announced itself through ordinary comfort. Far from the docks, in a noble residence, morning rituals unfold with much more order. Servants move quietly through shaded halls. Water basins are refreshed. Linens folded. Oil lamps extinguished. Floors swept. One servant carries fresh natron and ash toward a private toilet chamber. The chamber itself is modest by palace standards. Stone floor. Small ventilation opening. Limestone seat. Clay basin below. Clean linen nearby. A jar of water. A small vessel of scented oil. Comfort here is carefully maintained. Not because the toilet is beautiful. Because discomfort is unwelcome. The servant kneels and begins cleaning. This work requires discipline. No shortcuts. Residue must be removed. Sand replaced. Stone wiped clean. Air refreshed. Pleasant scent restored. Invisible labor once more. By the time the household wakes fully, the room will feel untouched. Ready. Prepared. Order depends on maintenance. Always. Even the most refined household rests upon endless cleaning. As the day warms, children run through narrow village paths. Bare feet kick dust into sunlight. They chase one another around baskets and jars. Laughter echoes briefly. Then one boy suddenly stops. His face changes. He crosses his legs. His friend notices. Points. Says something teasing. The boy scowls and runs. Childhood includes urgency too. Small bodies often wait too long. Too distracted. Too playful. Too confident. He reaches a quiet corner just in time. Relief. He sighs deeply. Embarrassment avoided. A narrow escape. Soon he is back to play as though nothing happened. Children recover quickly. Adults often envy this. By midday, the heat presses down once again. Stone radiates warmth. Air grows heavy. The smell of waste becomes harder to ignore. This is when cleaning crews matter most. In temple complexes, workers responsible for sanitation begin another round of maintenance. Temples were not only places of worship. They were workplaces. Storage centers. Administrative centers. Housing areas. Large numbers of people moved through them daily. More people meant more waste. More waste meant more cleaning. One temple worker carries 2 heavy containers suspended from a shoulder pole. His pace is slow but steady. The load pulls into tired muscles. He has done this for years. His shoulders bear permanent grooves where wood rests. He empties waste into designated disposal pits far from sacred spaces and water access. Flies gather. He waves them away. Sweat runs down his back. No priest performs ritual without support staff. No temple remains clean without workers. Sanitation itself supports sacred order. Even holiness depends on someone cleaning. Afternoon drifts onward. In a potter's workshop, a craftsman shapes wet clay into smooth rounded forms. Bowls. Storage jars. Water vessels. And chamber pots. He smooths the rim with practiced fingers. Rotates the clay. Applies pressure. Shapes utility from earth. He rarely thinks about who will use each pot. But he knows. Some vessels store grain. Some carry water. Some collect waste. All are needed. Civilization depends as much on humble pottery as on stone monuments. Clay serves the body. Stone serves memory. Both matter. As evening approaches, families return home. Dusty. Hungry. Tired. A grandmother sits near the doorway preparing lentils. She works slowly now. Hands marked with age. Fingers slightly bent. Her grandson sits beside her asking questions. Children ask endless questions. Why is the river high? Why does bread rise? Why do birds fly? Why do old people wake at night? She smiles faintly. Because bodies change, she tells him. Simple truth. Bodies change. They always do. Young bodies run. Old bodies rise carefully. Young bodies sleep deeply. Old bodies wake often. Young bodies recover quickly. Old bodies move with caution. Even toilet routines change with age. Night falls. One by one, lamps glow. Homes settle. Voices soften. Meals finish. Hands are washed. Floors swept. Children sleep. The grandmother lies down. Her joints ache. Her bladder feels uncertain. She knows she will wake before dawn. She always does. It has become part of life. Nothing dramatic. Just another rhythm. Another quiet interruption in sleep. The warm desert wind returns. It glides over rooftops. Across silent fields. Through reeds. Over sleeping workers. Over servants. Over merchants. Over children. Over the dark and patient waters of the Nile River. And somewhere in the deep quiet of night, another pair of tired feet touches a cool floor, beginning the same ancient journey into darkness. Night settles deeply over ancient Egypt once more. The land breathes in long, slow rhythms now. Heat still rises gently from stone walls and packed earth, but the sharp force of the sun is gone. Darkness softens everything. Harsh edges disappear. Busy roads become quiet paths. Markets that were crowded only hours ago now rest beneath stars and drifting dust. Above, the sky stretches wide and clear. The stars seem close enough to touch. They hang over the sleeping land in endless silence, shining above temples, farms, workshops, fishing boats, and simple homes made of mud, brick and reed. Far below them, ordinary life continues. Even at night, bodies do not fully stop. They shift. They ache. They wake. They need. Inside a narrow home near the edge of a village, an older potter lies awake. Sleep has become lighter with age. He misses the deep, heavy sleep of youth. When he was young, long hours at the wheel left him so tired that night felt immediate. He would lie down and disappear into darkness. Now things are different. His shoulders hurt. His fingers stiffen. His hips complain when he turns. And tonight, there is another familiar discomfort. Pressure. Persistent. Unavoidable. He exhales through his nose. He knows what this means. Another trip. Slowly, he sits upright. His bedding rustles softly. Nearby, his wife remains asleep, one arm folded beneath her head. At the far side of the room, stacked pottery catches faint moonlight. Bowls, jars, cups, and unfinished vessels wait for tomorrow. Clay waits patiently. It always does. The potter reaches for a small oil lamp and lights it with practiced hands. A warm glow fills the room. He stands carefully. His knees resist. He pauses before taking the first step. This pause has become routine. Age teaches patience. Rushing only invites pain. He walks toward a sheltered corner of the home where a clay chamber vessel sits beneath a wooden frame with a rounded opening. He made this vessel himself. Years ago. Strong clay. Thick walls. Practical design. The vessel contains a layer of sand and ash. Ash helps dryness. Ash helps odor. Ash helps cleaning. Even simple solutions matter. He lowers himself slowly. The hardest part is not sitting. It is the lowering. And later, the standing. His hands grip the wooden frame. His breathing slows. At last, relief comes. The body softens. Tension fades. His shoulders drop. Such a small act. Such a large comfort. The truth about ancient toilets is often less about objects and more about physical relief. The design mattered only because comfort mattered. A smooth seat. Dry sand. A little privacy. Enough support for tired knees. These small details could shape the experience of an entire day. Or night. When he finishes, he pours a little water for washing. Then comes the difficult part. Standing. He pushes upward with both hands. Legs tremble. He steadies himself. Done. He replaces the covering. Tomorrow morning, the vessel will need emptying. Nothing disappears on its own. That is another quiet truth. Every act creates labor. Someone must clean. Someone must carry. Someone must dispose. Comfort always leaves work behind. At first light, the village stirs. The potter's grandson wakes early. Young bodies wake differently. Quickly. Suddenly. Energy arrives almost at once. The boy sits up, rubs his eyes, and immediately begins talking. Questions already. Thoughts already moving. Children rarely ease into mornings. They leap into them. His grandmother smiles with sleepy patience. She gestures toward the outside. First things first. The boy understands. He grabs a small water jar and hurries out. Morning toilet routines are among the first lessons children learn as habits. Before breakfast. Before play. Before errands. Routine builds discipline. And discipline keeps village life orderly. The boy runs to the family's usual area behind a low wall near date palms. He squats. The earth is cool. The air smells fresh. Birdsong begins around him. Morning in Egypt carries a brief window of comfort before heat returns. This hour feels gentle. Forgiving. Soon labor will begin. Soon sweat will return. For now, the world still feels soft. Near the river, fishermen are already working. Their boats drift over calm dark water, slowly turning gold under sunrise. Nets are checked. Rope coils are untangled. Wooden paddles dip quietly into the Nile River. One younger fisherman sits with a troubled expression. He ate too quickly last night. Too much beer. Too much bread. Too little rest. His stomach feels swollen. Heavy. Not painful yet, but uncomfortable. Digestion in ancient Egypt depended heavily on diet. Bread formed the center of daily meals. Beer was common. Onions, garlic, lentils, beans, dates, fish, and vegetables filled diets depending on status and region. But grain-heavy diets brought digestive challenges. Constipation could become common. Hard stools. Painful straining. Long discomfort. Ancient medical writings suggest Egyptians treated constipation seriously. Herbal mixtures, oils, and laxative-like remedies were used to encourage movement. Because when the body could not release waste, suffering followed. The fisherman shifts uncomfortably on the boat. Not now, he thinks. Not while drifting away from shore. But the body does not always negotiate. He clenches his jaw. Waits. Breathes. Eventually, the discomfort eases slightly. Not solved. Only delayed. He will deal with it later. Many workers understood this uncomfortable patience. Waiting. Holding. Managing discomfort until privacy became possible. As the sun climbs, heat returns to the land. Workshops fill with labor. A weaving house hums with repetitive motion. Hands pull thread. Looms creak softly. Fibers tighten. A young servant girl sweeps the floor between stations. Dust gathers quickly. Lint gathers faster. She works quietly, nearly unnoticed. Then a supervisor calls her. A chamber pot must be emptied. She nods. No complaint. Just motion. She lifts the vessel with both hands. Heavy. Warm. Not pleasant. She carries it away from the workshop. Every step requires care. Spilling would mean more labor. More cleaning. More shame. Waste disposal often happened beyond populated spaces, where refuse pits collected unwanted material. Broken pottery. Animal remains. Ash. Waste. The servant reaches the disposal ground. Flies circle. She empties the vessel. Sand slides out with dull, dry sounds. She waits. Shakes the last residue free. Then she washes the container with water and ash. Scrubs the interior. Rinses again. Returns with clean sand. Ready once more. This cycle repeats daily. Sometimes many times daily. Her labor leaves no monuments. Yet without workers like her, households and workshops would become unbearable. Sanitation is quiet civilization. It is order without applause. By midday, heat presses down with familiar weight. The village grows slower. Even speech softens. A farmer working irrigation channels wipes sweat from his face. Water glints nearby. Mud clings to his calves. His stomach tightens suddenly. He freezes. Not good. A cramp twists deep inside. He bends slightly. Waits. Another cramp. Stronger. Urgent. He leaves his tool behind and hurries toward reeds near the canal edge. His walk becomes awkward. Short steps. Tense shoulders. Anyone who has felt urgent stomach pain knows this walk. Fast. But careful. He reaches cover. Squats immediately. His breath comes sharp. Pain. Pressure. Then relief. Sudden. Intense. His whole body slackens afterward. Sweat cools on his skin. The cramping fades. Exhaustion replaces urgency. He remains crouched longer than necessary. Recovering. Listening to reeds sway. Hearing insects buzz. Feeling wind brush his neck. Even unpleasant moments sometimes end in surprising calm. After washing, he returns to work slower than before. His co-workers glance at him. No questions. No teasing. Only understanding. Everyone knows. Everyone has been there. In a large administrative house, a scribe sits bent over papyrus. His reed pen scratches in steady rhythm. Grain inventories. Tax records. Storehouse counts. Numbers shape empire. But bodies interrupt paperwork too. After hours seated cross-legged, pressure builds in his lower back and bladder. He sets down his pen. Stands with a groan. His joints pop softly. Too much sitting creates its own suffering. He walks to a private toilet alcove. The limestone seat has been freshly cleaned. Smooth. Cool. Fresh sand below. A faint scent of perfumed oil lingers in the air. He sits. Silence. For a few moments, there are no records. No taxes. No responsibilities. Only stillness. Perhaps this is one reason toilet spaces sometimes feel strangely peaceful. They pause obligation. They suspend conversation. They offer temporary solitude. Even in busy lives. Even in crowded homes. As evening arrives, the heat loosens again. Children return from errands. Workers return from fields. Boats return to shore. Smoke rises from ovens. Bread bakes. Fish cooks. Onions soften in clay pots. The smell of dinner spreads. A young mother cleans her toddler after another accident. The child protests loudly. Rides. Refuses cooperation. She sighs. Half tired. Half amused. Parenting offers endless repetition. Clean. Wash. Comfort. Teach. Repeat. She wipes tiny feet. Tiny legs. Tiny hands. Soon enough the child will learn. For now, patience does the work. Night comes gently. Families gather. Meals are shared. Stories are exchanged. Lamps glow. Stars return. The old potter sits outside his home after dinner. His grandson sits beside him. Together they watch the night. The boy asks a simple question. Grandfather, did people long ago use toilets too? The potter smiles. A slow smile. He looks toward the dark horizon. Of course, he says. Everyone does. Kings. Farmers. Scribes. Priests. Children. Everyone. The boy thinks about this. It seems strange to him. He has imagined powerful people as somehow different. Above ordinary needs. But they are not. No one is. Bodies remain humble. Always. The warm desert wind moves again. It passes over sleeping animals. Over quiet workshops. Over temple walls. Over clay vessels drying in darkness. Over hidden toilet chambers filled with fresh sand. Over workers already exhausted from one day and preparing unknowingly for the next. and over the slow dark waters of the Nile River, where moonlight drifts in soft silver ripples. Somewhere, in another home, another lamp begins to glow. The lamp glows softly in the darkness. Its small flame trembles with each passing breath of wind that slips through cracks in the mud brick wall. Light spreads in warm circles across the floor, touching woven baskets, clay jars, folded linen, and sleeping forms resting close together. In this home lives a family of reed workers. Their hands shape marsh plants gathered from the banks of the Nile River into mats, baskets, sandals, ropes, and simple roof coverings. Their work is repetitive and rough on the skin. Fingers harden. Palms thicken. Nails split. Small cuts come often. The man holding the lamp is the father. He did not wake by choice. Pressure in his lower belly woke him. A slow, familiar pressure. Not painful. Just impossible to ignore. He sits on the edge of his bedding for a moment. Still half asleep. Listening to the night. His daughter murmurs in sleep. His wife turns once, then settles. Outside, the village remains quiet. He rubs his face. Age has changed his nights. There was a time when he slept from sunset until dawn without waking once. Work exhausted him so completely that sleep felt like sinking into deep water. Now his sleep comes in layers. Light sleep. Deep sleep. Waking. Turning. Stretching. Sleeping again. The body becomes less predictable over time. He stands. Slowly. His lower back feels tight from yesterday's work. Hours spent bending over reed bundles always leave stiffness behind. The back remembers every repeated motion. He takes the lamp and steps toward the rear of the house. This family uses a simple indoor arrangement during the night. A clay vessel sits beneath a wooden frame fitted with a smooth oval opening. Inside rests dry sand mixed with ash and crushed straw. Simple materials. Carefully chosen. Each serves a purpose. Sand absorbs. Ash dries. Straw reduces sticking. Ancient sanitation often relied not on complexity, but on careful understanding of practical materials. He lowers himself. The wood creaks slightly. He exhales. Silence returns. This is one of the strange truths of bodily routine. Relief is rarely celebrated. Yet it can feel deeply comforting. Muscles unclench. Breath deepens. The nervous system softens. Discomfort fades into quiet calm. For a few moments, there is nothing else to do. No weaving. No carrying. No repairing tools. No conversation. Only stillness. When he finishes, he washes carefully with water from a small jar. Even washing requires attention. Too much water wastes labor. Too little reduces cleanliness. Balance matters. Everything in ancient life involves balance. Water use. Food storage. Fuel. Labor. Rest. The vessel will need emptying at sunrise. That task belongs to his eldest son. Not because the father wishes to burden him, but because chores gradually pass from older bodies to younger ones. This is how households function. Responsibilities shift. Children become helpers. Helpers become workers. Workers become elders. The cycle turns quietly. Before dawn arrives, another home stirs. A baker's assistant wakes with sudden urgency. His eyes open wide. Immediately alert. This is not gentle discomfort. This is urgent. Sharp. He throws aside his linen covering and rushes outside barefoot. The ground feels cold. He barely notices. His stomach twists. He moves quickly around the bakery ovens toward a screened waste pit. Not graceful. Not calm. Urgency strips dignity from movement. He squats immediately. Pain grips his abdomen. Then releases. Then returns. The cycle repeats. Food illness is not uncommon. Perhaps spoiled fish. Perhaps contaminated water. Perhaps flour stored poorly. Perhaps insects. Ancient food storage was a constant battle against moisture, rot, pests, and heat. Grain bins had to remain dry. Bread spoiled. Fish turned quickly in heat. Even careful households faced risks. His breathing grows shaky. The episode leaves him weak. Drained. Sweat cools across his skin. Afterward, he remains crouched longer than needed, simply waiting for strength to return. Digestive illness can empty a body of energy with frightening speed. Ancient people knew this feeling well. Weak knees. Dry mouth. Heavy limbs. Sudden fatigue. Recovery required rest. But rest was not always possible. The ovens still need firing. Bread still must be baked. Morning hunger does not pause for illness. By sunrise, Egypt glows gold again. Mist lifts lightly over the Nile River. Birds skim the water. Boats drift from shore. Fields awaken. The reed worker's eldest son carries the night vessel outside. He holds it carefully. The weight is manageable but unpleasant. He has done this many times. Still, he never enjoys it. He walks beyond clustered homes toward a disposal area used for household waste. Broken pots lie scattered there. Ash piles. Animal bones. Discarded reeds. Waste management in ancient settlements often depended on designated refuse zones like these. Not elegant, but necessary. He tips the vessel. Sand pours out in a dry cascade. He shakes loose remaining material. Then comes cleaning. He scrubs with sand and water. Rinses. Scrubs again. Ash helps cut residue. He works efficiently. Years of repetition create speed. Soon the vessel is clean. Fresh sand goes in. Ready for another day. Another night. Another cycle. By mid-morning, market streets become crowded. Merchants call out goods. Grain. Oil. Fish. Linen. Tools. Pottery. Perfume. Dates. Garlic. Onions. The air is thick with smells. Spices. Dust. Animals. Sweat. Smoke. And beneath everything, the faint background truth of crowded humanity. Where many people gather, sanitation becomes more difficult. Waste accumulates quickly. Smells linger. Flies thrive. Crowded market districts likely had constant challenges with refuse removal. Sweepers moved through busy streets. Waste carriers emptied containers. Animal droppings had to be cleared. The cleaner the market, the healthier the trade. A merchant selling perfume oil sits cross-legged beneath shade cloth. His products smell pleasant. Lotus oils. Myrrh. Resin blends. Customers enjoy fragrance. Yet even he feels discomfort growing in his abdomen. He ignores it. A customer approaches. Negotiation begins. Price discussion. Measurement. Weight. Money. Still he waits. Then another customer. Still waiting. Now discomfort grows stronger. Holding becomes effort. His smile tightens. His posture stiffens. Finally the crowd thins. He closes his jars. Stands. Walks quickly toward a private area behind market storage walls. There, relief arrives. He laughs softly to himself afterward. Not from humor. From release. From simple gratitude. Comfort returns. The body can transform mood in moments. Discomfort narrows attention. Relief restores the world. At midday, heat settles heavily. A noble child complains to his mother. His stomach hurts. Not severe. Just uncomfortable. Bloated. Slow. Constipation. A common problem in many households. The mother calls for a household healer. The healer arrives carrying small jars. Seeds. Oil. Herbs. Honey. He asks calm questions. When was the last bowel movement? Was there pain? Straining. Hard stool. Loss of appetite. Ancient medicine often began with detailed observation. The healer prepares a remedy. Oil mixed with herbal paste. Gentle instructions follow. More water. Rest. Patience. Perhaps massage. Perhaps warm compress. The child frowns. Unhappy. But treatment begins. Sometimes ancient healing was advanced in observation even when explanations differed from modern understanding. They watched patterns. Patterns told stories. Afternoon drifts on. At a temple school, young scribes practice writing symbols repeatedly onto broken pottery shards. Their teacher walks between them. Correcting posture. Correcting brush control. Correcting errors. One boy shifts constantly. Distracted. The teacher notices. Annoyed. Then understanding comes. He gestures toward the exit. Go. Quickly. The boy runs. Not out of rebellion. Out of necessity. Even disciplined schools could not overpower biology. The boy reaches a small latrine area used by staff and students. A simple stone seat over sand-filled collection space. Shared facilities like these required frequent cleaning. High use meant constant maintenance. He sits. Relief. His whole body relaxes. Moments later he returns calmer. Able to focus. Comfort improves concentration. Even learning depends partly on bodily ease. As evening approaches, the heat finally weakens. Workers return home. The market thins. Boats dock. Animals settle. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Dinner preparations begin. Inside the reed workers' home, the family eats together. Flat bread. Beans. Onions. A little fish. Simple food. Enough. The father stretches his back after eating. Pain shoots briefly across his spine. His daughter notices. She asks if he is hurting. He smiles gently. Only tired, he says. But tired can mean many things. Muscle fatigue. Joint pain. Heavy digestion. A full bladder. Stomach discomfort. Ancient people knew countless shades of tiredness. After dinner, washing begins. Hands. Faces. Feet. Children first. Then adults. Cleanliness before sleep brings comfort. Dust removed from skin. Sweat washed away. The body feels lighter. Night deepens. One by one, lamps dim. Conversation fades. Breathing slows. The family lies down. Outside, the warm desert wind moves softly through reeds near the dark waters of the Nile River. It carries the smell of river water, wet plants, clay, and distant cooking fires now reduced to ash. The village sleeps. Yet somewhere, another worker turns restlessly. Another child stirs. Another elder wakes. Another lamp waits to be lit. And once again, somewhere in ancient Egypt, a tired hand reaches through darkness toward a familiar clay vessel. The clay vessel feels cool beneath tired fingers. Its surface is smooth in some places, rough in others, marked by tiny imperfections left by the potter's hand many months ago. Small scratches from repeated cleaning catch faint lamplight. The vessel has no decoration. No painted symbols. No carved beauty. It does not need beauty. It needs reliability. In ancient Egypt, many objects were valued not for appearance but for dependable usefulness. A water jar that did not crack. A basket that did not split. A sandal that survived rough stone. A toilet vessel that held, absorbed, and cleaned easily. Practical things earned quiet respect. The hand that reaches for the vessel tonight belongs to a widow. She lives alone now. Her children have married and moved into nearby homes. They visit often. They bring food. They help repair walls and patch roofing reeds before seasonal weather shifts. But night is still mostly hers. Quiet. Still. Lonely, sometimes. Peaceful, sometimes. Both can exist together. She lights a small oil lamp. Warm amber light fills the room. Her home is small. A sleeping mat. Clay storage jars. Folded linen. A low stool. A grinding stone she uses less often now. Age has changed her strength. Tasks that once felt ordinary now require planning. Even lifting grain jars takes thought. Even kneeling takes care. Even standing again demands effort. Tonight her bladder woke her. A familiar interruption. As people age, the body often grows less patient. Signals arrive earlier. Urgency comes faster. Sleep breaks more easily. She sits at the edge of her bedding for a moment, collecting strength. Outside, wind moves gently across the land. Far away, the dark waters of the Nile River continue their endless journey north, silent and steady. She rises. One hand rests against the wall. The other holds the lamp. Her indoor toilet arrangement is simple. A wooden seat. A clay collection vessel. Dry sand mixed with ash. A folded linen cloth. A small jar of water. Everything arranged carefully. Order matters more with age. When objects remain in expected places, the body spends less effort searching. Routine becomes support. She lowers herself slowly. Very slowly. Her knees ache. Her hips resist. Her breath grows shallow during the descent. Then finally, rest. The body releases. Relief arrives. Her shoulders soften. The small tension she carried while waking begins to dissolve. For a few moments, she simply sits in silence. There is something deeply human about these quiet pauses. No performance. No expectation. No labor. No conversation. Just the body returning to balance. Ancient life offered few private spaces. Yet toilet moments sometimes became accidental moments of solitude. A rare pause. A small island of stillness. When she finishes, washing takes longer than it once did. Hands move carefully, deliberately. She dislikes feeling rushed. Rushing creates mistakes. Mistakes create more labor. She returns to bed. The lamp is extinguished. Darkness returns. Sleep slowly follows. By dawn, Egypt begins another day. Light spills gradually across fields and village walls. Roosters call. Birds gather in palm trees. Smoke rises from ovens. The scent of baking bread begins moving through narrow paths. A young baker kneads dough. His forearms flex rhythmically. Press. Fold. Turn. Press again. Dough sticks slightly to his hands. Flour dust clings to his skin. Baking begins before sunrise because bread feeds nearly everyone. Workers heading to fields want food early. Temple staff need deliveries. Children wake hungry. The baker pauses. His apprentice notices. The older man stands still. One hand rests against his lower stomach. A mild pressure. Nothing urgent. Yet, he has learned not to ignore early signals. Age teaches planning. The wise learn to go before urgency arrives. He wipes his hands. Moves to the rear area behind the ovens. There stands a simple latrine arrangement built beside a wall. Stone seat. Sand pit below. Shade overhead. Practical. Warm from nearby ovens. He sits. Even this small decision improves the day. No discomfort during peak work. No distraction while handling customers. Routine creates efficiency. Ancient people understood this without needing formal systems. Bodies work better when rhythms are respected. Nearby, a girl carries water from the Nile River. She balances a clay jar against one hip. The jar is heavy. Water transport shapes posture. Shoulders strengthen. Spines adapt. Feet toughen. This daily labor begins early because cooler hours reduce strain. She walks with practiced steps. But halfway home, she notices her younger brother behind her. He walks awkwardly. Too stiff. Too careful. She knows immediately. He waited too long. Children often wait too long. They delay for play. For curiosity. For stubbornness. He whispers urgently. She points toward a grove of reeds near a wall. Go now. Quickly. He runs. Bare feet kicking dust. Just in time. He squats, breathing hard. Relief arrives. He closes his eyes. A deep sigh escapes him. Even children understand relief with perfect clarity. When he returns, embarrassed, his sister says nothing. No teasing. Only quiet understanding. Embarrassment fades faster when no one feeds it. By mid-morning, craftsmen fill workshops. Hammering. Grinding. Sanding. Carving. In a stone workshop, a sculptor smooths limestone with careful strokes. White dust coats his arms. Dust enters hair. Dust settles in nostrils. Dust clings to sweat. Hours of work create thirst and fatigue. The sculptor drinks from a water jar. Too quickly. Too much. An hour later, pressure builds in his bladder. He tries to ignore it. He cannot. Work requiring precision becomes difficult when discomfort grows. His attention narrows. Lines become less steady. Hands less patient. He sets down his tool. Walks outside. Near the workshop stands a shared latrine used by craftsmen. Simple but useful. Frequent use has worn smooth edges into the stone seat. Generations of workers may have used this same place. Shared spaces leave physical traces. Polished stone. Worn corners. Footprints hardened in packed earth. Ordinary history lives in wear patterns. The sculptor sits. Silence. Relief. His focus returns almost immediately. Comfort restores patience. He returns to stone. The face he carves becomes smoother now. Steadier. At noon, heat settles across everything. Even conversation slows. A noble household remains somewhat cooler behind thick walls. Servants move through shaded corridors. One servant carries fresh sand to a private toilet chamber. The work is repetitive. Lift basin. Carry away waste. Empty. Wash. Scrub. Dry. Refill. Replace. Every day. Multiple times. Ancient sanitation depended heavily on routine maintenance. A poorly maintained toilet quickly became unpleasant. A well-maintained one almost disappeared into household routine. This invisibility is important. When sanitation works, people barely notice it. When it fails, everyone notices. The servant kneels. Fresh sand pours with soft hissing sounds. He smooths the surface evenly. Care matters. Even distribution improves absorption. Small details improve comfort. Quiet craftsmanship exists even in cleaning. Afternoon drifts toward evening. Near a canal, farmers work irrigation channels. Mud presses between toes. Water reflects blinding light. One farmer suddenly stops. A cramp grips low in his belly. Sharp. Unexpected. He bends slightly. Waits. Another cramp. Stronger. His face tightens. He leaves his tool immediately. No hesitation. Experience has taught him. Delay brings misery. He moves toward tall reeds. Fast but controlled. Urgency reshapes movement. Every step becomes important. He reaches privacy. Squats. Pain peaks. Then release. Sudden. Powerful. The body softens all at once. His forehead lowers briefly into one hand. Exhaustion follows. Relief and weakness often arrive together. He stays there longer than necessary. Listening to water. To insects. To wind moving reeds. Ancient Egypt could be harsh. But even harsh landscapes offered small pockets of calm. Even difficult moments could end in quiet stillness. At sunset, the village glows warm gold. Children return home dusty and hungry. Dogs stretch. Goats settle. Cooking fires rise. A mother washes her toddler after yet another accident. The child protests loudly. Arms flail. Tiny feet kick. She sighs. Not angry. Only tired. Toilet learning is patience repeated. Same lesson. Same reminder. Again and again. Ancient parenting included endless cleaning. Small messes. Small accidents. Small victories. Eventually the child learns. Tonight, not yet. Night deepens. Stars return. The widow from earlier sits outside her home. Her daughter visits briefly. They talk softly. Simple conversation. Food. Neighbors. The harvest. A sick child nearby recovering. Ordinary topics. Comforting topics. Nothing dramatic. The daughter leaves. The widow lies down. The house grows still. Wind moves softly over rooftops. Across workshops. Across fields. Across temple walls. Across quiet latrines filled with fresh sand awaiting tomorrow's use. And over the dark, patient waters of the Nile River. Somewhere in that darkness, another body shifts in sleep. Another elder wakes. Another child stirs. Another lamp will soon flicker into life. Another lamp flickers into life. Its flame begins small, barely more than a glowing point, then grows into a steady light that paints soft gold across a narrow room. Shadows stretch long against mud brick walls. Woven baskets hang from wooden pegs. A bundle of reeds rests near the doorway. A clay water jar catches a gentle shine along its curved side. The lamp belongs to a boatman. He lives close to the banks of the Nile River, where the sound of water is never far away. Even in darkness, he can hear the river moving. Soft lapping against mud. The faint creak of moored wooden boats tugging against rope. Reeds brushing each other in slow, whispering movements. He wakes with a full bladder. Not urgent. Not painful. Just steady. Impossible to ignore. He sits up and rolls his shoulders. They ache. Years of rowing have shaped his body. His arms remain strong. His back remains broad. But strength does not prevent wear. Muscles tire. Joints stiffen. Hands harden into thick, rough tools. His palms carry old rope burns and fresh cracks from labor. He yawns. His wife sleeps beside him, breathing deeply. A child sprawls sideways near their feet, blankets twisted around one ankle. The boatman smiles faintly. Children sleep without order. Without symmetry. Without care. They simply surrender to sleep completely. Adults rarely do. He stands. The floor feels cool beneath his soles. This family does not keep an indoor toilet vessel at night. Their home is too small, and the boatman dislikes strong odors indoors. Instead, he walks outside to a screened area made from reed panels tied between wooden posts. Simple privacy. Enough. Ancient toilet solutions often reflected available space and household preference more than status alone. Not everyone wanted indoor arrangements. Even those who could afford them sometimes preferred outdoor air. Ventilation mattered. Fresh air mattered. Especially during warmer months. The boatman steps into the enclosure. Moonlight filters through narrow gaps in the reed walls. Thin silver lines cross the packed earth. He squats. Exhales. The pressure fades. Relief arrives quietly. His breathing slows. This small release feels almost ceremonial in the silence of night. No words. No thought. Only the body returning to ease. When finished, he washes with water from a small jar kept nearby. Cool water touches skin. Refreshing. Grounding. He pauses before returning indoors. The night is beautiful. The stars reflect faintly in the dark water of the Nile River. He listens. Nothing urgent. Nothing demanding. Only river. Only wind. Only night. Then he returns to bed. Sleep takes him quickly. Before dawn fully arrives, another household wakes. This home belongs to a family of linen workers. Their days revolve around fiber. Soaking flax. Drying stalks. Separating fibers. Spinning thread. Weaving cloth. Their labor is patient work. Repetitive work. Hands learn rhythm. Pull. Twist. Tighten. Repeat. The grandmother wakes first. She always does. Age has changed her relationship with sleep. She no longer trusts long sleep. She wakes often. Sometimes for water. Sometimes from aching hips. Sometimes because her bladder refuses patience. Tonight, it is the bladder. She sighs softly. Not annoyed. Just familiar. This again. She lights no lamp. She knows her home by memory. Every step. Every object. Every corner. Darkness no longer confuses spaces she has crossed for decades. Her hand glides along the wall as she walks. She reaches a clay chamber pot placed beside a screened corner. Her movements are practiced. Careful. Unhurried. Age teaches economy of motion. No wasted movement. No sudden turning. No rushing. She lowers herself. Slowly. Pain visits her knees first. Then her hips. Then stillness. At last, relief. She closes her eyes. Breath deepens. In these moments, bodily comfort feels deeply honest. No status. No pride. No role. Only need. Only relief. When finished, she cleans carefully and returns to bed. Soon, morning begins. Light creeps over the horizon. Cool air carries the smell of wet reeds and distant smoke. Birdsong grows louder. The village stirs. A potter's apprentice wakes late. Too late. His master dislikes lateness. The boy jumps up immediately. Heart racing. He rushes to dress. Then stops. His body interrupts him. A sharp pressure low in his abdomen. He groans. Not now. But yes now. The body has chosen. No negotiation. He runs behind the workshop. Past stacked clay. Past drying bowls. Past half-finished jars. He reaches the workshop latrine. A simple stone slab over a sand pit. He sits quickly. Urgency becomes relief. His entire posture changes. Shoulders drop. Jaw loosens. Breath slows. Such fast transformation. Minutes earlier, discomfort controlled his attention. Now comfort returns clarity. This is one of the quiet lessons ancient toilets teach. Physical comfort shapes thought. It shapes mood. It shapes patience. It shapes work. A comfortable body thinks differently than an uncomfortable one. By morning, the village fills with movement. Workers leave homes. Merchants arrange goods. Children carry messages. Animals stir dust into warm air. At the market, a fruit seller arranges dates and figs in careful rows. Presentation matters. Even ordinary food sells better when neatly arranged. He works with focus. Then pauses. A familiar pressure builds. His bladder. He ignores it. Customers are arriving. Business first. But holding discomfort changes behavior. He becomes less patient. Less warm. More distracted. He miscounts change. He snaps at a child. He sighs heavily. Finally, he accepts reality. He asks a neighboring seller to watch his stall. Then walks briskly toward a shared latrine area behind storage buildings. Shared toilets in busy districts likely required constant maintenance. Heavy use meant rapid wear. Frequent emptying. Frequent cleaning. Frequent sand replacement. Someone always handled that work. Often unseen. Often underappreciated. The fruit seller sits. Relief comes. He exhales long and slow. Within moments his irritation fades. His face softens. He feels almost foolish. The discomfort had quietly shaped his whole mood. Bodies influence temperament more than people often notice. At midday, heat returns with familiar force. Stone brightens. Dust glows pale. Air thickens. A temple servant sweeps shaded corridors. His task list is long. Sweep floors. Refill lamps. Carry water. Clean waste containers. Prepare storage rooms. Repeat. He reaches a small latrine area used by lower-ranking staff. The basin is full. Too full. Cleaning cannot wait. He kneels. Lifts carefully. Heavy. Warm. Unpleasant. The smell is sharp in midday heat. He exhales through his mouth and keeps moving. Years of labor teach practical endurance. Not heroic endurance. Ordinary endurance. The kind built from repetition. The kind that says, "This is unpleasant, but it must be done." He carries the basin toward disposal grounds. Flies gather instantly. He waves them away. Sweat runs down his neck. When the task is finished, he scrubs the basin thoroughly. Sand. Water. Ash. Rinse. Scrub again. Fresh sand added. Ready once more. The cycle continues. Ancient sanitation was not about perfection. It was about maintenance. Constant maintenance. Order survives through repetition. By late afternoon, the heat finally loosens. Near irrigation fields, a farmer rests beneath thin shade. He drinks water slowly. Too quickly causes cramps. Experience has taught him. Nearby, his young son fidgets. Restless. Distracted. Uncomfortable. The father notices. He asks no questions. He simply gestures toward nearby reeds. The boy understands immediately. He runs. Small legs pumping. Urgency makes children move fast. He disappears behind reeds. A moment later comes silence. Then a deep sigh. The father smiles faintly. He remembers being young. He remembers waiting too long. Some lessons repeat across generations. Evening returns. The sky softens into orange, then rose, then violet. Homes glow with lamplight. Bread bakes. Lentils simmer. Fish roasts. Families gather. A mother cleans her infant after soiling a linen wrap. The baby kicks happily, unaware of inconvenience. She smiles despite exhaustion. Some messes are frustrating. Some simply feel like life. She washes cloth carefully. Water splashes into a shallow basin. Soap does not exist as we know it, but ash, oils, and abrasive materials help clean. Clean cloth matters. Clean skin matters. Comfort matters. Night settles again. The boatman returns home after a long day. His shoulders ache more than last night. His hands burn. He eats quietly. Washes. Lies down. His child curls close beside him. Outside, warm wind moves across reeds. Across roofs. Across workshops. Across market stalls now empty and still. Across latrines where fresh sand waits for tomorrow's routines. and over the slow dark waters of the Nile River, reflecting stars that have watched countless generations live these same small rituals. Somewhere in the deep quiet, another sleeping body begins to stir. Another sleeping body begins to stir. The movement is small at first. A shifting shoulder. A bent knee slowly straightening. A hand searching for balance in darkness. Then wakefulness arrives fully. Inside a modest home near a granary, a grain measurer opens tired eyes. He works long days counting, weighing, and recording sacks of barley and emmer wheat. His labor is not as visibly exhausting as hauling stone or rowing boats, yet it carries its own burden. Dust. Always dust. Fine grain dust settles everywhere. In hair. On skin. In nostrils. Inside lungs. It clings to sweat and turns into pale streaks along the neck and arms. By evening, his throat often feels dry and rough. Tonight he wakes because of pressure in his bowels. Not sharp. Not urgent. But steady. A firm, undeniable message from the body. He lies still for a moment, hoping perhaps the feeling will pass. It does not. Some needs do not negotiate. He exhales and rises. The air is cool before dawn. His wife remains asleep. One child snores softly, mouth slightly open. Another sleeps curled tightly, knees near chest, wrapped in linen. The grain measurer reaches for a lamp but decides against it. Moonlight slipping through the doorway is enough. His home includes a small private latrine space near the rear wall. Nothing elaborate. A wooden frame. A clay basin. Fresh sand from yesterday. He lowers himself. The familiar discomfort in his abdomen increases briefly. Constipation. Again. His diet has been too dry lately. Too much bread. Too little fresh greens. Too little water during work. It happens often. Ancient Egyptian diets nourished millions, but grain-heavy meals combined with heat and labor could create digestive trouble. Hard stools meant straining. Straining meant discomfort. Sometimes pain. Sometimes bleeding. Small bodily problems could become lingering burdens. He braces his feet. Waits. Breathes slowly. Pushes carefully. Patience matters. Too much force creates pain. Too little brings no relief. Time stretches. The house remains silent. At last release. Slow. Difficult. But successful. His shoulders drop. He feels immediate gratitude. Even difficult relief feels like relief. The body grows lighter. Less burdened. More at ease. This quiet victory will never be recorded anywhere. Yet to him, in this moment, it matters greatly. History is full of such invisible victories. By sunrise, granary workers are already moving. Sacks shift from shoulder to shoulder. Ropes tighten. Scales balance. Grain pours with soft rushing sounds like dry rain. The grain measurer resumes work. His morning discomfort now gone, concentration returns more easily. Numbers come cleaner. Mistakes feel less likely. A comfortable body supports careful thinking. This truth remains timeless. Nearby, a donkey handler leads animals loaded with sacks. One donkey suddenly stops. Refuses to move. The handler tugs gently. Then more firmly. Nothing. The animal spreads its stance. Its tail lifts. The handler sighs. He knows. Not stubbornness. Just nature. Even animals obey bodily routines. The donkey relieves itself right there in the dusty road. The handler waits. No frustration. Only acceptance. Ancient streets constantly filled with animal waste as well as human waste. Sanitation involved not only toilets but continual removal of droppings from donkeys, oxen, goats, and birds. Sweepers mattered. Street cleaners mattered. Refuse carriers mattered. Without them, roads became difficult quickly. Invisible labor again. Always invisible labor. Farther south, a brickmaker begins work near a muddy clay pit. His job is brutally repetitive. Mud mixed with straw. Pressed into molds. Lifted. Set to dry. Repeat. Hour after hour. His feet remain wet with clay. His calves burn. His lower back throbs by mid-morning. Then comes a familiar pressure. His bladder. He has been drinking more water lately because of heat. Good for survival. Inconvenient for work. He walks away from the clay pit toward a patch of reeds near an irrigation channel. No formal toilet here. Only privacy created by distance and plants. This was reality for countless laborers. Simple access. Natural cover. Routine understanding. He relieves himself standing. Steam rises faintly in cool morning shade. Relief comes instantly. Quick. Simple. Sometimes bodily relief takes only moments. Yet those moments can reset the entire day. He returns to work lighter. More focused. At a noble estate, morning routines feel quieter. Servants move with deliberate efficiency. A young servant girl carries fresh water to private chambers. Another folds linen. Another sweeps floors. One older servant handles toilet maintenance. He has done this work for decades. His motions are economical. No wasted effort. He removes a basin from beneath a limestone seed. Checks sand moisture. Too wet. Replace fully. He empties the contents into disposal containers. Washes the basin with water and ash. Scrubs. Rinses. Dries. Fresh sand poured. Smoothed flat. The sound is soft. Almost soothing. Like grain filling a jar. He replaces everything exactly. When the household enters later, nothing unpleasant remains. Only cleanliness. Only comfort. Good sanitation often feels invisible because its success removes evidence of itself. At midday, heat settles like a heavy blanket. The village slows. Conversation shortens. Movement becomes deliberate. In a weaving house, an older woman works at a loom. Her feet press petals rhythmically. Thread tightens. Cloth grows slowly. She has worked since sunrise. Now cramps begin in her lower abdomen. She recognizes them immediately. Not bladder. Bowels. Urgent. She sets aside her work. No delay. Experience teaches respect for urgency. She walks fast but carefully to a shared latrine behind the workshop. A stone seat rests over a sand-filled chamber. She sits. Pain grips. Sharp. Then stronger. Sweat beads across her forehead. Digestive upset. Perhaps yesterday's fish. Perhaps spoiled lentils. Perhaps nothing obvious. Sometimes illness arrives without explanation. Minutes pass. Relief finally comes in waves. Pain eases. Then exhaustion settles in. Her limbs feel weak. She remains seated longer than needed. Recovering. Listening to distant loom sounds. Breathing. When she returns, co-workers glance at her. Their faces show quiet understanding. No questions. Shared labor builds shared empathy. By late afternoon, children fill open spaces again. Dust rises around running feet. A group of boys play with a ball made of bundled reeds. They shout, laugh, chase. One boy suddenly freezes. His expression changes. Urgency. He crosses his legs. Too late. His friends notice. Silence for 1 second. Then immediate recognition. One points toward a wall. Go. Now. The boy runs. No teasing. No mockery. Children understand this particular emergency. He disappears behind the wall. Moments later, relief. Crisis avoided. He returns quieter but smiling. Play resumes. Life moves on quickly. As evening falls, a physician visits a household where an elderly man complains of stomach pain and difficulty passing stool. The physician carries small containers of oils and herbs. He asks patient questions. How many days? Any blood? Any swelling? Pain where? Appetite? Urination. Ancient Egyptian medicine paid close attention to elimination. Waste leaving the body mattered greatly in diagnosis. A body unable to release properly was seen as imbalanced. The physician prepares a mixture of oil and herbal ingredients. Gentle instructions follow. Drink. Rest. Wait. Massage the abdomen. Sometimes treatment involved soothing rather than curing. Comfort itself was medicine. Night approaches. The grain measurer returns home tired. Dust coats his skin. His throat feels dry. He eats slowly. Bread. Beans. A little onion. Beer. Nothing lavish. Enough. After dinner he washes his hands and face. Water cools tired skin. Dust turns to muddy streaks and runs away. Clean skin changes mood. Comfort returns. Small routines restore dignity after hard labor. His children settle onto mats. His wife extinguishes one lamp, leaving only another burning low. The room glows softly. Quiet spreads. Outside, wind moves over storage buildings. Over animal pens. Over workshops. Over refuse pits and cleaned latrines prepared for tomorrow. And over the dark flowing waters of the Nile River, where moonlight trembles gently. The grain measurer lies down. His body feels heavy. His stomach feels calm tonight. That alone feels like a blessing. His eyes close. Sleep begins. But somewhere else in ancient Egypt, another elder shifts in discomfort. Another child wakes crying. Another worker grips a sore belly. And somewhere, in darkness, another small lamp is about to be lit. The night deepens again, as if the world slowly folds itself back into quiet layers. Sound becomes distant. Even the wind feels softer now, moving gently over rooftops and empty streets. The heat of the day still lingers in walls and ground, but it no longer feels sharp. It feels tired, like everything else. In a small home near the edge of farmland, a field laborer wakes with a slow, heavy breath. His body feels older than his years. Not because of age alone, but because of work. Years of bending over soil. Years of carrying irrigation tools. Years of walking long distances under sun that does not forgive mistakes. His shoulders are broad but worn. His hands are strong but cracked. His back carries a constant memory of strain. He lies still for a moment, staring into darkness. Then he shifts. A familiar discomfort rises in his abdomen. Not sudden. Not sharp. Just persistent. He knows this feeling well. He sits up slowly, careful not to wake the others sleeping close beside him. His wife breathes softly. 2 children are curled together under a shared linen cloth. Their sleep is deep, untroubled, peaceful in the way only children's sleep can be. The man stands. The floor is cool beneath his feet. Outside, the air is lighter now, touched by pre-dawn calm. He steps out into the narrow space behind the home. There is no formal toilet structure here. Only a familiar corner of earth used quietly by the family for years. A place understood without words. A place shaped by habit. He squats. The body responds slowly at first, then releases tension in a steady wave. Relief arrives quietly. No celebration. No thought beyond comfort. Just a soft return to balance. He exhales and looks up at the sky. Stars still hang above the land. Unmoved. Unhurried. Ancient Egypt sleeps beneath them, as it has for generations. He finishes, washes with a small amount of water, and returns indoors. There is no time lost. No disruption. Only continuation. Life resumes exactly where it paused. Before dawn, the first signs of movement appear near the river. Boats shift gently against their ropes along the banks of the Nile River. Fishermen begin waking. Their routines are quiet, practiced, and careful. One fisherman sits at the edge of his boat, rubbing his face with both hands. He feels tired. Not from sleep alone, but from yesterday's long labor. His stomach feels unsettled. A dull heaviness. He remembers last night's meal. Fish preserved too long in heat. Bread slightly dry. Beer too quickly consumed. Now his body responds with discomfort. He sighs and steps off the boat. Before setting out onto water, there is always one last opportunity for privacy. He walks behind stacked reed bundles near the shore. The air is cool and damp here. He squats. Waits. Relief comes in slow stages. His shoulders drop. His breathing steadies. The tension in his abdomen fades. When he returns to the boat, he feels more prepared for the day. Not energized, but balanced. In ancient life, balance often mattered more than strength. By sunrise, the river becomes active. Boats move. Cargo shifts. Voices carry across water. The Nile becomes a living highway. On one larger vessel, a group of workers unload grain shipments destined for storage houses. The work is fast. Coordinated. Repetitive. A young laborer struggles to keep pace. He drank too much water during the night. Now pressure builds quickly. Too quickly. He shifts from foot to foot, trying to ignore it. But the body is impatient. The foreman notices his distraction. Sends him briefly to the shore. No punishment. Only practicality. Work flows better when bodies are not distracted by urgent needs. The boy runs. Behind a cluster of reeds, he finds privacy. Relief comes immediately. Afterward, he sits for a moment longer than necessary, letting his breathing slow. Then he returns to work. The foreman says nothing. The rhythm of labor continues. In a nearby settlement, a group of potters begins shaping clay for storage jars. Hands press into wet earth. Water glistens on surfaces. Wheels turn slowly. A master potter speaks softly to his apprentice. Not many words. Mostly instruction through repetition. Shape. Smooth. Thicken. Balance. Among their products are vessels meant for many purposes. Water storage. Cooking. Carrying grain. And sometimes, chamber vessels for night use. These are made thicker at the base. Wider at the opening. Designed for stability. Designed for cleaning. The apprentice watches carefully. Every object they make will eventually interact with human need. Food. Water. Waste. Life itself. Later in the day, a servant from a wealthy household arrives to collect several finished vessels. She examines them briefly. Checks thickness. Checks rim smoothness. Checks balance. Then selects a few. She does not think about the lives these vessels will touch. Only their function. Back at the estate, the household is already active. Servants move through shaded corridors. Water jars are filled. Floors are swept. Linen is folded. And in one corner, a sanitation servant begins morning maintenance. The toilet chamber has been used during the night. It always is. He removes the clay basin carefully. The contents are carried away toward a disposal pit outside the main residence. There is no hesitation. No disgust shown outwardly. Only routine. He returns with fresh sand. Ash mixed into it. He pours it into the basin. Smooths the surface. Ensures even distribution. The chamber is reset. Ready for another day. This cycle repeats endlessly. Night. Morning. Night again. Clean. Use. Clean again. In a large city district, a market begins to fill with noise. Merchants call out prices. Animals push through crowds. Children weave between stalls. The smell of food, dust, and people blends into a dense atmosphere. A spice seller sits quietly behind his stall. His jars are carefully arranged. Cinnamon. Coriander. Garlic. Salt. He smiles at customers. But as the morning grows older, he begins to feel pressure in his lower abdomen. He ignores it at first. Then continues selling. Then ignores it again. Business is busy. Time passes. The discomfort grows into urgency. His posture stiffens. His attention slips. He undercharges a customer by mistake. Then corrects it. Then grows more distracted. Finally, he accepts reality. He calls for a neighbor to watch his stall. Walks quickly away. Behind a storage wall, he finds a simple shared latrine space used by market workers. Stone slab. Sand pit. Simple structure. He sits. Relief comes in waves. His shoulders drop as if a weight has been removed. He laughs quietly to himself afterward. Not out of humor. Out of relief. The body has too much influence over mood to ignore. As the afternoon heat rises, a group of children plays near a shaded courtyard. Their laughter echoes against walls. One child suddenly stops mid-game. His expression changes. Urgency. He looks around quickly. A friend notices and points toward a nearby wall. Go. Now. The child runs. Dust rises beneath his feet. Behind the wall, he squats quickly. Relief comes immediately. He returns later as if nothing happened. Play resumes without explanation. Childhood moves quickly between urgency and forgetfulness. Evening arrives gently. Work slows. Boats return to shore. Farmers gather tools. Families begin cooking. A woman stirs lentils over a small fire. Her youngest child sits nearby, playing with a broken piece of pottery. The child suddenly shifts uncomfortably. The mother notices immediately. She sighs. Not frustration. Recognition. She lifts the child carefully. Carries him outside. Behind the house, she helps him squat. Patience learned through repetition. Care learned through repetition. Life continues through repetition. Night returns once more. Homes glow softly with lamplight. Conversation fades. Bodies settle. The field laborer lies down exhausted. The fisherman sleeps deeply. The potter rests his hands. The merchant counts his earnings one last time before sleep. The grain measurer breathes slowly in darkness. And over everything, the silent flow of the Nile River continues, unchanged, patient, eternal. Somewhere in the distance, a lamp flickers. Another person has woken. Another need has returned. Another ordinary night in ancient Egypt continues. The lamp in the small room burns low, its flame shrinking and stretching as if it too is tired of holding light through the night. Outside, the world remains still. The air over ancient Egypt is cooler now, but not cold. It carries the faint scent of damp earth and distant water, drifting from the slow-moving banks of the Nile River. Somewhere far away, a bird calls once, then falls silent again. Inside this quiet, a young servant boy wakes. He does not wake fully at first. His eyes open slowly, heavy with sleep. His body feels warm under a thin linen cloth. He listens without moving, trying to understand what pulled him from rest. It is not sound. It is not fear. It is need. A familiar pressure in his lower body. He sighs softly, still half asleep. Children do not yet learn patience with bodily signals. When the body calls, they respond quickly, often clumsily, sometimes too late. He sits up. His small feet touch the cool floor. The sensation sharpens his awareness. He looks toward the corner where his mother sleeps, then carefully slips out of the bedding area. No lamp is needed. He knows the way. The family's night corner for such needs is simple, a clay vessel placed in a woven reed enclosure. Sand at the bottom absorbs, ash helps dry, and straw softens the sound and texture of use. It is not elaborate. But it is enough. He lowers himself carefully. The movement is slow, slightly unsteady. Relief comes almost immediately, and his shoulders loosen in response. His breathing, which had been tight without him realizing it, begins to slow. For a moment, he simply sits there in quiet. There is something gentle about the early hours before dawn. Even discomfort feels softer when the world is still. When he finishes, he washes his hands with a small amount of water from a shared jar. The water is cool against his skin, and he pauses for a moment just to feel it. Then he returns to his sleeping mat. No one has woken. No one speaks. The night continues as if nothing happened. By the time dawn begins to approach, the village near the river is already preparing for movement. Along the edge of the Nile River, reeds sway gently in the faint morning wind. Boats creak softly as ropes tighten and loosen with the shifting water. Fishermen begin to stir, their routines shaped by decades of repetition. One older fisherman sits quietly at the edge of his boat, rubbing his knees. They ache more each year. Not sharply. Just constantly. He thinks about the day ahead, then shifts his weight carefully before standing. Before he steps onto the boat, he walks a short distance behind a cluster of reeds. He does not hurry. There is no need. The river is patient. The land is patient. Life, here, moves at a steady rhythm. He squats. The cool air brushes his face. The pressure that had been building slowly through the night releases, and his body settles into relief. He stays there for a moment longer than necessary, simply listening to the water. Then he rises. Washes. Returns. The boat will soon leave shore. Farther inland, in a weaving workshop, a group of women are already at work. Their hands move in steady repetition, guiding thread through wooden frames. The sound is soft but constant, like a slow breathing of the room itself. A young woman pauses suddenly. Her body tightens slightly. She recognizes the feeling immediately and shifts her weight. She does not stop at first. She tries to continue weaving. But concentration fades quickly when the body demands attention. After a few moments, she sets down her work and stands. There is no shame in this decision. Only practicality. She walks toward a small enclosed corner behind the workshop where a shared latrine space has been arranged. It is simple. Stone seat. Sand below. A reed screen for privacy. She sits. The tension in her body releases in stages, like knots slowly loosening. Her shoulders drop. Her breath deepens. The world outside feels quieter from here, as if even noise respects this small pause. When she finishes, she washes her hands and returns to the loom. No one comments. No one interrupts. Work resumes exactly where it left off. By mid-morning, the sun is already warm. Light spreads across the fields and the narrow paths between homes. Dust rises with every step taken along the roads. A grain carrier walks through a busy storage area, carrying a heavy sack on his shoulder. He moves steadily, but his face tightens as pressure builds in his abdomen. He has been ignoring it since earlier. There was always one more load. One more trip. One more delay. But now the urgency grows sharper, and his pace begins to break. He adjusts the sack, shifts his grip, and finally sets it down with care. He looks around briefly. Then heads toward a quiet corner near stacked storage jars. Behind them, there is enough privacy. Not perfect, but enough. He squats quickly. Relief comes immediately. His body relaxes so completely that for a moment, he forgets about the work waiting for him. When he stands again, he feels lighter. Not just physically. Even his patience returns. He lifts the sack again and continues. In a noble household nearby, morning routines are already layered with careful order. Servants move quietly through shaded corridors, maintaining cleanliness, preparing food, and managing water supplies. One servant enters a small toilet chamber with a clay basin that has been used during the night. He lifts it carefully. It is heavy. Not just with weight, but with unpleasantness. He carries it outside the main building toward a designated disposal pit. The path is familiar. He has walked it countless times. At the pit, he empties the contents. Then pauses. The next step is always cleaning. He scrubs the basin with sand and ash. Water rinses away residue. He repeats the process until the surface feels acceptable again. Then he refills it with fresh dry sand and places it back inside the chamber. The room will look untouched when guests or family members enter later. Cleanliness restores dignity to space. And dignity restores comfort to life. By afternoon, heat presses heavily over the land. The air feels thicker, slower. Even movement seems to require effort. A group of children plays in the shade of a wall. Their game is simple, loud, and full of sudden movement. One child suddenly stops mid-run. His body stiffens. He looks toward the others, uncertain. Then urgency takes over. He runs. Bare feet kicking dust. Behind a nearby wall, he finds a small quiet space. He squats quickly. The world becomes still. After a moment, he exhales deeply. The urgency fades. He returns to play without explanation. The game continues as if nothing interrupted it. This cycle repeats across villages, homes, workshops, and fields. Bodies interrupt life, then return it to rhythm. Evening arrives with soft colors. Orange fades into deep blue. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Bread is broken. Lentils are stirred. Water is shared. Families gather in small groups, their voices low and tired. A fisherman returns home, shoulders heavy from labor. A potter sits outside his house, hands resting in his lap. A grain carrier stretches sore muscles. A servant washes dust from his face. And a child falls asleep mid-conversation, head tilting slowly until rest takes him completely. Night settles again over the land. And beneath the quiet sky, the Nile continues its slow, eternal flow, carrying reflection, memory, and silence through the heart of Egypt. And somewhere in that silence, another small lamp begins to glow. The small lamp is lit with careful hands, its flame rising slowly as if it too is waking gently from sleep. Its light spreads across a modest room built of mud brick and woven reed. Shadows soften. Corners become less sharp. The world inside this home becomes smaller, warmer, more contained against the vast darkness outside. A midwife sits alone. Her work does not follow regular hours. Birth does not follow schedules. She sleeps when she can, wakes when she must, and lives in a rhythm shaped by urgency rather than routine. Tonight, she wakes because of discomfort in her own body. A slow, familiar pressure. Not dangerous. Not alarming. But enough to pull her from sleep. She exhales quietly, placing a hand on her lower abdomen. Her body has learned over many years that ignoring signals only brings greater discomfort later. So she rises without hesitation. Outside her small sleeping area, the air is cool and still. The village is silent, wrapped in the deep calm of pre-dawn hours along the banks of the Nile River. Even the river seems quieter now, its movement less noticeable, as if it too is resting between breaths. The midwife steps carefully across the room. Her tools are stored in a woven basket, linen cloths, small jars of oil, herbs wrapped in dried leaves, simple stone instruments for cutting reeds or cloth if needed. Everything is organized because everything must be found quickly when urgency arrives. But tonight is not a birth night. It is only her own body asking for attention. She moves to a small private corner behind a reed screen. There is no elaborate structure. Only a clay vessel placed on a low stand, filled with dry sand and ash. She lowers herself slowly. Her movements are practiced, calm, unhurried. In her profession, she has seen the full cycle of human life: birth, illness, recovery, and death. She understands how fragile bodies can be, and how constant their needs remain at every stage. Even here, in solitude, that truth continues. Relief comes quietly. No interruption. No noise. Just a slow easing of pressure, like a knot loosening in soft fabric. She exhales and closes her eyes for a brief moment. The body is always honest, she thinks. It speaks without words. It never lies. When she finishes, she washes her hands with a small basin of water and returns to her sleeping mat. Before lying down again, she pauses for a moment, listening to the village outside. Still quiet. Still sleeping. But not for long. Dawn is near. And with dawn, everything will begin again. By the time the first light reaches the horizon, movement returns to the land. Along the riverbanks of the Nile River, fishermen untie their boats. The wood creaks softly as ropes loosen. Water laps gently against the shore, as if greeting them. One young fisherman stands at the edge of the water, stretching his arms. His body feels stiff from sleeping on the ground. His stomach feels unsettled, too. Not pain exactly. Just imbalance. He drank water too quickly last night after a long day of labor. Now his body responds in its own quiet way. He glances around. There are reeds nearby. Enough privacy. He walks a short distance, steps carefully through damp earth, and squats. The air is cool against his skin. The river moves quietly beside him. Relief comes quickly, and with it, a soft sense of readiness. He washes his hands in river water, then returns to his boat. The day will be long, but now it feels manageable again. Farther inland, in a farming village, workers are already moving through fields. A man carrying irrigation tools pauses mid-step. His expression changes suddenly. A cramp tightens in his abdomen. He bends slightly, breathing through it. Then another wave follows. He knows immediately what this is. He sets down his tools. There is no hesitation. He walks quickly toward a line of tall reeds bordering the irrigation canal. The reeds sway gently in the morning wind, offering privacy. He squats. The world narrows to stillness. The discomfort that had been building for hours finally releases, leaving behind exhaustion but also relief. He stays there a moment longer than necessary, letting his breathing slow and his body recover. Then he stands, washes with canal water, and returns to work. No one asks questions. No one needs to. This rhythm is understood. In a nearby weaving house, the day begins with steady motion. Looms creak softly. Threads tighten. Patterns form slowly, row by row. A young woman pauses mid-work. She feels a familiar pressure building again. Not urgent yet, but enough to distract her hands. She hesitates. The cloth she is weaving is delicate. Mistakes are costly. She tries to continue. But the body insists. She stands. Steps away from the loom. Moves toward a small screened corner behind the workshop. The space is simple. Stone seat. Sand beneath. Reed walls around. She sits. Exhales. The tension releases gradually, like warmth spreading through tired muscles. Outside, the weaving continues without interruption. Inside, she rests in brief silence. When she returns, no one comments. Work resumes exactly where it left off. By midday, heat settles heavily over the land. Dust rises with every step along village paths. The sun presses down on stone, wood, and skin. Even conversation slows under its weight. A grain porter walks through a storage yard carrying a heavy sack. His shoulders ache. His breath is shallow. And now, a familiar pressure builds again in his abdomen. He ignores it at first. He always does. There is always more work. Always another load. But this time, the urgency grows too quickly. He sets the sack down carefully. Looks around. Then walks behind stacked jars and wooden crates. There is just enough space for privacy. Not ideal. But enough. He squats. The relief that follows is immediate and overwhelming in its simplicity. His body relaxes so fully that he remains still for a moment afterward, simply breathing. When he finally stands, the weight of discomfort is gone. He lifts the sack again and continues. In a noble estate nearby, servants maintain quiet order. One carries a clay basin from a private chamber. It has been used during the night. He walks with steady steps toward a disposal pit outside the main residence. This work is routine. Repetitive. Uncelebrated. But essential. He empties the contents, scrubs the basin with sand and ash, rinses it with water, and prepares it again for use. Cleanliness returns the space to calm. Order returns to the household. By late afternoon, children play near shaded walls. Their laughter echoes softly between buildings. One child suddenly stops mid-game. His body tenses. He looks around quickly. Then runs. Dust rises behind his feet. He disappears behind a wall. A moment later, silence returns. Then relief. He comes back slowly, rejoining the game as if nothing happened. Play resumes. No explanation needed. No embarrassment lasting long. Evening arrives gently. The sky turns orange, then violet, then deep blue. Smoke rises from cooking fires. Families gather for simple meals. A midwife sits outside her home, watching the last light fade. Her work may begin at any moment tonight. Or not. She does not know. She simply waits. Inside homes across the land, lamps are lit one by one. And over the quiet waters of the Nile River, stars begin to reflect again. Another day in ancient Egypt ends not with ceremony or monument, but with small routines completed. Bodies cared for. Homes cleaned. Needs met. And somewhere in the deepening night, another lamp flickers awake once more. The lamp flame trembles slightly, then steadies, casting a soft circle of light over the mud brick wall. It is late now. Later than most would choose to be awake. But in ancient Egypt, some lives move outside regular hours, shaped instead by need, timing, and quiet interruptions that cannot be planned. A temple guard sits alone near a storage corridor. His duty is simple at night. Listen. Watch. Remain present. The temple is mostly silent at this hour, its courtyards empty, its long halls resting under darkness. Stone walls hold the warmth of the day like memory, slowly releasing it into cooler air. The guard shifts slightly on his seat. His body feels heavy from stillness. His eyes grow used to the dim light. Then a familiar discomfort rises in his lower abdomen. Slow. Steady. Unavoidable. He exhales through his nose. He has been awake too long already, and now his body demands attention. He stands carefully, trying not to make unnecessary noise. His sandals touch stone floor with a soft sound. He walks through a side passage used by temple staff. The air here is cooler, more enclosed. Near the back corridor, there is a small designated area for waste and sanitation needs, kept discreetly away from sacred inner spaces. Even temples, with all their order and ritual, still depended on simple human arrangements. He reaches the space. A stone seat. A clay basin beneath. Sand mixed with ash, prepared earlier by a cleaning servant. He lowers himself. The tension in his body eases gradually. Relief arrives not as a sudden moment, but as a slow unfolding. Shoulders soften. Breathing steadies. The mental sharpness of discomfort fades, replaced by calm fatigue. For a few moments, he simply sits in silence. The temple around him feels vast and distant now, as if he is the only living presence inside it. When he finishes, he washes his hands carefully in a small basin of water kept nearby. Cleanliness is not just comfort here. It is discipline. He returns to his post. Nothing has changed. And yet everything inside him feels quieter. Outside the temple walls, the night stretches over the land of the Nile River. The river continues its slow movement, barely visible under starlight. It does not rush. It does not pause. It simply flows. In a nearby village, a potter wakes suddenly. Not from sound. Not from light. From urgency. He sits up quickly, placing a hand on his stomach. A dull cramping discomfort spreads. He knows this feeling too well. Something he ate earlier did not sit well. Perhaps spoiled grain. Perhaps unclean water. Perhaps nothing obvious at all. He moves quickly, careful not to wake his sleeping family. Outside, the air is cool and still. He walks behind his workshop where clay storage jars are stacked and drying shelves lean against a wall. There is privacy here, though not comfort in the modern sense. Only space. Only necessity. He squats. Waits. His breathing becomes shallow for a moment as discomfort peaks, then gradually fades. Relief comes slowly but steadily, like a tide going out. When it is done, he remains still for a moment longer, gathering himself. Then he rises, washes with a small amount of water, and returns inside. The clay workshop will be active again before sunrise. Work always returns quickly in this world. In another part of the settlement, a household servant quietly moves through a noble residence. Her task is sanitation. She carries a clay basin used during the night from a private chamber. Her steps are measured, careful, practiced. She walks through a narrow corridor toward an outer courtyard where waste is disposed. The night air is cooler here, carrying faint traces of smoke and earth. She empties the basin into a designated pit. Then pauses. This part of her work is always the same. Rinse. Scrub. Dry. Replace. She uses sand and ash to clean the basin, rubbing the surface until it feels smooth again. Water rinses away residue. She inspects it briefly, then fills it with fresh dry sand. The chamber will look untouched when morning comes. Clean. Orderly. Ready. She returns the basin to its place. No one speaks of this work. Yet it is repeated every night, in every household of this kind. Far from the estate, along the river edge, a fisherman prepares his nets. He works slowly in the dark, hands moving through familiar motions. Then he pauses. A pressure in his abdomen interrupts his rhythm. He looks around. The riverbank is empty at this hour. He sets the net down carefully and walks a short distance behind a cluster of reeds. The ground is soft. Damp. Quiet. He squats. The river nearby moves gently, barely visible. Relief comes quickly. After a long pause, he exhales deeply, as if releasing not only physical tension but also the weight of fatigue carried through the day. He washes his hands in river water before returning to his nets. The night will soon end. Work will begin again. In a weaving house nearby, a young woman wakes briefly from shallow sleep. She turns on her mat. Her body feels unsettled. Not pain. Just pressure. She sits up slowly. The house is still dark. Others sleep around her. She stands carefully, moving toward a corner screened with reeds. A clay vessel sits there, filled with sand and ash. She lowers herself. Relief follows quietly. No interruption to anyone else. No noise beyond soft movement. When she finishes, she returns to sleep without fully waking. Her body remembers the routine even when her mind barely does. And so the night continues. In every direction, small moments of interruption and relief unfold across homes, workshops, and riverbanks. A farmer pauses in his sleep and steps outside. A child stirs and is guided quietly by a parent. A laborer wakes early and resolves discomfort before work begins. None of these moments are recorded. None are remembered in stone or ink. But they are repeated endlessly. Across generations. Across centuries. Always the same simple rhythm of need and release. And above it all, the sky remains unchanged, holding steady over the land as the Nile River flows quietly through darkness, carrying the reflection of stars that never grow tired of watching. The night in ancient Egypt does not end all at once. It fades slowly, as if the world itself is reluctant to let go of stillness. Along the banks of the Nile River, the water continues its steady movement, carrying reflections of stars that grow dimmer with each passing moment. The river has no awareness of endings or beginnings. It simply continues, as it always has. In villages, homes remain still for a little longer. A few lamps burn low, their flames shrinking into soft orange points. Most have already gone out, leaving only the memory of light on walls and floors. Inside one small house, a family sleeps close together on woven mats. Their breathing is slow and even. Outside, a faint breeze moves through reeds and narrow paths, brushing against mud brick walls that have stood through many seasons of heat and flood. Somewhere, a door creaks softly as a late sleeper returns to rest. Somewhere else, a pot of water is set down carefully for the morning. And everywhere, the quiet routine of bodies at rest continues without attention. The world of labor, effort, and need is paused. Not ended. Only resting. In the earliest edge of dawn, light begins to return. It does not arrive loudly. It spreads gently across the horizon, pale and patient, touching fields first, then rooftops, then narrow streets where dust still lies undisturbed from the night. The Nile River shifts color under the changing sky, from deep darkness into soft silver, then into the faint gold of morning. Birds begin to call again. Boats creak as ropes tighten. Smoke rises once more from small fires being rekindled. Life prepares to continue. But before it fully begins, there is a brief moment where everything feels suspended. A moment where nothing is demanded. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is heavy. Only quiet existence. In that space, all the people who lived through the night, farmers, fishermen, bakers, scribes, servants, children, elders, remain together in stillness, even if they are unaware of one another. Their lives are separate. Yet their rhythms are the same. Need. Relief. Work. Rest. A cycle that has no beginning that can be seen, and no ending that can be held. And as the first full light of morning settles across the land, the ancient world does not feel distant or strange. It feels continuous. Ordinary. Human. The river flows on. The wind moves through reeds. The sand warms under the sun. And slowly, quietly, the day begins again.